All right. Let's see.
Great.
Let's see where you're at. How's it sound?
How I can hear myself.
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is perfect. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're back from. This is actually coming back from lunch.
Okay.
There was just a luncheon, so we took
was
like an
not
hour
there.
break. Yeah, didn't we? I think we had a ticket for you. Well, maybe we didn't.
No, you did.
Anyway, but the crisis. I got you.
I'll explain later.
We got it. All right. So I am joined by Dr. Helena Stephens. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
If I don't think we never released our original podcast.
No, all the technology issues.
Well, and not Well, and there's other things with the certification that has held that up. But
Okay.
so many of the viewers might not have. Well, definitely would not know who you are. So do you mind? Because you're not a metrologist.
Correct.
And
Yet.
you're a doctor. So what do you? Oh yeah, yet. So what do you? Do you mind explaining
Not at all.
what your degree is, and especially what a psychometrician is? Like, what is that?
Sure. So my degree is in counselor education and supervision, which on the front end may seem like it has no relevancy whatsoever to what we're doing, but within the umbrella of my doctorate, there are multiple disciplines: test assessment, education theory, learning theory. I am a professor, so my bedrock is teaching.
Mm-hmm.
My discipline that I teach is counseling, but the auspice of what I do is all about education, teaching and learning and assessing. So as a psychometrician, that subdiscipline would be test theory, test development, validating instruments, all of the statistical properties behind what makes an instrument valid, lots of numbers, but also a lot of the theory on how we design an instrument, what needs to go into it, the process of creating. It's not just creating the document. There's a whole theory for how you create it. And then there's a theory for how you assess it, so that when we disseminate it, we can say this is valid, this is reliable. So it's kind of a mix of a theoretical side with content and also a statistical side.
Right.
So I hope that made sense.
Well, we're going to unpack a lot of that.
Good.
Because when it comes down to it, like, how did you get involved in this? Obviously, there's your family side. Your dad is famously from our
side of
group here.
metrology,
Yeah,
yes.
Joseph Rendoni.
The lesser known side of engineering. I always joke that growing up, I had no idea what my dad did. I knew it was with technological instruments, but even on the take your daughter to work day, take your kid to work day, I don't remember learning anything. I just remember it was obnoxiously early and I followed people around. I remember learning a little bit about radio waves, but that's it.
Yeah.
They would talk about microwaves and I would think, the thing you cook
Microwave.
a Hot Pocket in, not
Sure.
like microwaves. I don't even know how else to explain it. So, how did I get into?
Well, I was
Go ahead.
also helping unpack it for you, and then so you came when we're developing a certification here at Science Certified now.
Mm-hmm.
We needed a part of that process to get accredited. You need a psychometrician, and for people like myself, you're like, why? Okay, what is this, right? And so as you were describing, it's all in the assessments, right? So if we're creating a certification. I could write a question that makes sense to me.
Right.
And I think this is a fantastic question, but then everybody misses it. And it's like,
You're a fish in your own water, unfortunately. And so the necessity of an outsider is just that. If I read it, although I'm not a calibrator, does the question still make sense? Is it written well enough that the person taking it can understand what they're being asked to do? And that's that whole theoretical side that I was talking about. How you write a question, how many questions you put together, the sequencing of it. There are so many, I think, invisible layers of an assessment, and we take assessments all the time.
what was it called during our process? It was didn't this come in? This came in to the job task analysis. Is that what? Yeah, like trying to match.
Yes.
What is someone actually doing with?
So it's not just, I think of a question that I think makes sense. There needs to be some sort of foundational connection. So in my field, we would pull from research. We would pull from the experts. We would come up with like a rough draft and give it to at least 50 experts or 100 experts in our field. There's no like one best practice number, but you definitely want a good sample size of people to look at your document and go, yeah, these are the kinds of questions that we should be asking. And I know that because I'm an expert in the field. So it's the types of questions, it's the way that the questions are written, it's
Right.
the ways in which we group it together. I mean, that's just like the big content side of it. After that, we do a number of different analyses to see, are we actually measuring that which we said we are going to measure? This was something I took as a training in my doc program. I took a class on it, and I don't know, it was just very inspiring to me. It's one of my nerdy passions because
Sure.
like I said, we take assessments everywhere in life. When you're checking in with the doctor, when you're doing career development, online, all kinds of assessments are popping up left and right. And so to understand the really intricate process behind it, and then I do like statistics. I do really appreciate running some multivariate analyses, some ANOVAs, factorial analysis. That's the primary one in our empirical testing for assessments and validations with tests. So I just find it really fascinating, really just interesting. And when I was learning about sign calibration, I still view you guys as like a mini college. You are your own educational company, but you're training people in the same way that a degree program would train them. And so we give tests to validate that people have learned what they're supposed to learn and that they are credible to go out into the field. In counseling, we have 3 primary ones that we give, and they're the tests that say, yes, you are eligible for licensure, therefore like you're eligible to be legitimate in the
Oh
field.
yeah, which
And
is
it's
super important.
It's a huge deal. I don't see why we wouldn't do the same for our calibration people if they are legit. And I know that's a big passion for sign calibration is we need something standardized, legitimate. Standardized, that's a tricky word, but like we need systematic.
And sometimes it scares people.
It
We talk about
does.
that. So that's one of the subjects, of course, I'm going to bring up when I have you on the show is like the testing hesitancy and
Yes.
but more the anxiety around people being evaluated. And I think it's obvious in my view, and maybe I'm making it simplistic, but a lot of people just don't want to look dumb at work.
They don't. And I mean, on the mental health side of test taking, some of us are good test takers. We see the opportunity to demonstrate our knowledge. And for others, the anxiety of that type of performance task creates all kinds of issues with
Yeah.
like brain fog, blinders, seeing black, just your mind going blank. And like you can know your stuff in and out and you can do it hands-on, create it, and then you look at that paper and like it's like somebody just wiped your brain clean.
And I'm sure people identify with that. Like, obviously, I do a lot of public speaking now, and it's something that's a part of just what I do. But when I was a little kid, I went to church every week with my family, and there would be times that I'd have to do a talk or whatever in church, and my vision, I was just black. I
Yeah.
couldn't see because I was just freaked out,
The performance anxiety. And I don't need to pathologize where it comes from, although I enjoy that part of my work too. But there's usually some root experience. And so
Can
multi-dimensional,
church be that root experience?
Absolutely.
Like that is the
unfortunately. Are you sure you want to tiptoe into that?
no. We'll stay away,
Stay
but
focusing.
because you're saying like there typically is a genesis of it, but maybe that genesis in my case was that. But I got to
Potentially.
work through it through the Marine Corps, so
Yeah, and I'm not a great test taker. I'm speaking from personal experience. My mind would go blank, and I would get these really poor test grades, and I would look at them like stumped, like, but I just did it in the homework and I did it well. How come I'm not doing it here? And
Right.
it was the anxiety. You feel the pressure. You feel like you're under the gun. I've got to get this right or else. And in most cases, when you don't do well on a test, there are ramifications.
right.
And in my field, if you don't pass that test, you're not licensure eligible. So that being said, I still think that we need metrics that are objective to determine if somebody is qualified or not, especially for the importance of calibration
Yeah.
in rural, and even in my field too, we're dealing with life or death matters of the mind. I should be able to pass that test so
Yeah.
that I can say I'm legitimate to handle this.
Right.
And I think where my field fails is we only have that one test. And I can do really great clinical work, But if I can't get over my testing anxiety, or if there's one component that just isn't my best strength, I have no other opportunity to demonstrate my
Yeah.
competence and capacity. What I love that we're doing at Sign is we have levels of tests and assessment. And I think because of the objectivity of metrology, where counseling is very subjective,
Right.
it makes sense to have a standardized test. There is a baseline level of knowledge, and I've gleaned this from all of the calibrators that I have talked to. There's definitely level 1 entry. You need to know these things to be able to just perform basic tasks.
Right.
So we should have a level 1 test, so that we can say the person you hired is legitimate. And what I'm also learning from a lot of calibrators is that because there isn't a systematic training or education pathway program, you can pretty much get a job as a calibrator with no experience and no education,
Right.
and it's causing a lot of chaos for our laboratories. So if we
Who are you talking to?
some
Name
big
the
names,
names.
some
No.
big names, no, some
No.
really big names that even I know as a non-calibrator.
Right. No,
so
it is. It's a significant issue, and you know, it's one of those just due to the nature of the size of our industry, and it's not. I'm sorry if we can we detour just
Of
for a
course.
second. So when we look at a college as a business or as an entity, like
it's a business.
collegiate, the programs across the nation. When we're talking about metrology, why is it that there isn't more colleges that teach it? Does a college look at, hey, how much money can we make off of degree programs, and
Yeah.
eventually it just gets, hey, there's not enough people enrolling in these things?
That's a big part of the conversation. What is a moneymaker, and then also what can we sell as a career moneymaker?
Yeah, bring it just a little closer.
So
You can actually bring it. You can bring it closer to you. There you
I
go.
do like to lean back. It's about money making on both sides of the fence. So
Okay.
on the business side, I think historically have offered programs that weren't big money makers because of the kind of the way higher education is designed as a liberal arts. So they're like liberal arts institutions, but it's more so that college was founded with a liberal arts philosophy, a place to be a free thinker, a place to expand your educational and intellectual horizons. And for obviously many decades, that was sufficient. And you could do a number of things with our degrees that we now say are non-profitable and a waste of your time. But as we've just shifted in the postmodern society, we've really been moving away. I've been in higher education for over a decade, and I've seen a huge shift just in the last 11 years from what we have just traditionally done to now the conversations we have on our side of the fence are what's a money-making program and what do we market as a money-making career. And so
Yeah.
we've lost history majors, we've lost liberal arts majors, we have lost theater programs because they're just not moneymakers. I think with metrology, like I said, it's kind of an invisible engineering job.
Well, you made me start to think. Yeah.
People just don't know about it.
Is it also because you make it in what you were saying? You made a great point that it's liberal arts and things like that. When you start to sneak into the trade zone, like trades, is that kind of where big college kind of goes? Well, that should probably be more of a technical college or a specialized schooling type thing when it comes to trades.
I think that's just where it's historically fallen,
Yeah.
because you don't need a 4-year degree to be a plumber. You don't need a 4-year degree to be a technician. And so they're more like 2-year, 1-year programs. It just fits within that environment of a 2-year college. But some Big 4 universities have been picking up here and there these technical programs because it is a cash stream. It is. A lot has changed in our secondary education, so our high schoolers. A lot has changed in the conversation about what career pathways are. When I was in high school 20 years ago, there were 2 conversations. You either go to college to make money or you don't. Military sometimes fell within there, but it wasn't frowned upon. It just really wasn't given attention. Like, yeah, that's an option. You can go do that, but it was neither sold as a good opportunity or was it like frowned upon. And
That's how it was
that's
where
in
I grew
Southern
up.
California. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you could go do that. Now the conversations we're having, because of the truth of it, is you can go to a tech school. You can do an apprenticeship program. And I have this conversation with my 10th graders that I teach career counseling to. Like, you can make more money as a plumber than you can with a 4-year degree in business. But we talk about obviously the drawbacks to the job,
Yeah.
and that's really the focus of the conversations we have now. Is you have these options, and we promote them. Just know what you're getting into, like
Yeah.
the work environment, the job demands, building your own business, and so. That's 20 years later. We're now including that conversation, and so a lot has changed, secondary and post-secondary. But I really think that metrology is just unknown.
Yeah.
And if it had more visibility, if people understood the importance of it and how it could be even like a specialty within an engineering bachelor's program, I don't see how we couldn't sell it, because the top programs that we are keeping and creating in our colleges are engineering, nursing, physics, all within the STEM. But engineering
Right.
and nursing, those are our top two, because that's the money makers right there.
So it's so funny because just for fun, I threw past AI, like, what are some good guest questions for fun here, right? One of them was to ask a guest, in your opinion, should like measurement uncertainty be included in high school? And I thought that was such a great question from the AI, because the more and more, because I have two kids that have been through the school system. They're now adults, right? There definitely is room for more practical
Sure.
things like that, and understanding. I don't know. I guess it's so easy to be in calibration, be in measurement science, and to feel like it's so important. But life does, in
Is
some
so
ways, go.
important.
It is, right? But it's so funny because it comes down to risk in very specific spots
Sure.
that are like extreme risks.
Yeah.
And then there's some where there's people that, they can just willy-nilly do their measurements, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
It could go on that way for 10 years, and will anything happen? Probably not. So it's so wild.
I think you could find a place in high school. The barrier we're running into now is with funding.
Yeah.
And we've lost a lot of programs related to music and arts and performance. But what we have seen an increase in, just like within post-secondary, are schools with an emphasis on STEM. In where I live, in our district, they reorganized one of the elementary schools to now be a STEM-focused project school. That's
cool.
at elementary level, so that's the direction we're moving in. I don't see why calibration couldn't fit in if you could find somebody to do some project-based learning. What that would entail is either somebody like me as a school-based counselor, or a district-level person to know about metrology,
Right.
B, know somebody, and then start to integrate it. And those are the kinds of things that unfortunately fall to the wayside, because it is a lot of work. And
Yeah.
it's easier to go find a mechanical engineer, because they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking the mechanical engineers, but there's a lot of them. And,
Well, there's
and
a lot of-
everybody goes, "Oh yeah, mechanical engineer," and I've heard of
You
that.
mentioned, well, no one knows about it. If there's anything that is known as a well-paying degree, it's engineering of any kind, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a popular degree.
It is. Those programs will never go away. What can you do as a civil engineer? What can you do as a mechanical engineer? I mean, that I don't think the commonplace person knows all of the subdisciplines, but calibration falls under electronics engineering technology. It falls under, a subset of electrical engineering. It's there. I don't know what it would take for our college level people to meaningfully integrate it. I feel like they might have some awareness, but I would be as bold, Ryan, to say I don't want to see it in a 4-year program, because you don't need a 4-year program.
No.
And I'm actually, even though I have a doctorate, that was a necessary evil to do what I do now as an educator, and I'm very passionate about my field of mental health counseling, and that's just the direction I had to go. There's no alternative option, but there is an alternative option for calibration, and
Right.
I would honestly hate to see it fall into a 4-year degree, because it won't attract people.
Right.
Our kids these days, especially in the post-COVID era, have a different mindset about how they build a life for themselves. And unfortunately, they're less likely to go the long-term route, because these are instant gratification kids. Because of technology and media,
Oh, yeah.
they know I can get instant access to things. Why would I spend 9 years in school? That's ridiculous.
Right.
And it's so fine. Let's use that to our advantage. Take our 1 year, take our level 2, whatever, and then go out there and do really important work. So I think, like, you guys come onto the scene at a really advantageous time when
Yeah,
kids don't want
probably.
to go to school for 4 or 5, 6
Right.
years, and even a 4-year program is typically taking 5 to 6 years now, just because of a number of institutional issues that we're having in higher
Oh
education.
yeah. Well, that's a whole different conversation
It is.
that I would love to have, but wrong audience, unfortunately. Because I've been a part of it. I've gone to college, and as an adult, so I have like it's a much different perspective. You know,
Sure.
when you're going as an adult and you're like, why do they do this? You
No,
know,
you have a different mindset for like, what am I getting out of this? Why am I doing that? I work with graduate students who are choosing our program as their career pathway, and are non-traditional learners, those who are re-careering or are just older coming back into it. There's definitely a different mindset, a different caliber about their demeanor and their personality, and I appreciate them because they're really conscientious about what is it that this is doing for me, how is it helping me, how's it serving me, how's it teaching me, all of those things I should have on my shoulders all
Yeah.
the time. That keeps me like ethically sound in my work if I'm considering all of those factors. So, and that's why I don't want this to fall, part of why I don't want it to fall into a 4-year degree program, because kids coming fresh out of high school into college, and this is what I've seen in the last 20 years of my career, because before I was a higher education professor, I've been working in schools my whole career. There's a lot of growth needed, a lot of development needed, and our kids who go straight from the pipeline of high school to college, especially in an age of technology where they're having limited social experiences,
Yeah.
they're just
Which is so true. Like the
It's-
way that my kids went to school
Yeah.
and the social stuff you're talking about is entirely
My son was
different.
messaging with AI this morning on Instagram, and
It's
I
incredible.
watch his social media like a hawk, because that's what a good parent should do, because there's a lot of like crazy stuff out there, and I'm seeing their the thread of the messages pop up on my phone, and I'm like, who is this person? Oh, it's AI. I was like, why are you talking to AI when you have humans around you? You have friends that you could be messaging, and you chose to message AI. I could rabbit hole about the whole like psychopathology of that, but that still like blew my mind. If you have friends, my son has friends.
Yeah.
Why are you messaging AI? But I think it's a good example of kind of, I can't really put my finger on it all the time, but I know that kids are just like this these days. And so they have low
I also
competency for socializing. They have low emotional intelligence. And so if they're just going straight into a degree program because that's what they're told to do, that's just not who I want as my technician for my gas pump, Ryan. I'll just say it like that. That's not who I want fixing my grocery store.
well, and
Wait.
I think a lot of sorry, I keep having something out of the corner of my
That's
eye.
okay.
It is one of those things that as I start to, because I'm trying to tackle a very large issue, obviously, and
Yeah.
it's difficult. And you start to look at the generational things that you're talking about, and I definitely think that they're under a lot more scrutiny to where maybe AI is a safer place to throw ideas past in some ways. Because
For sure.
I feel like everybody these days is so quick to be like, kind of like a disprove, like everybody's out to disprove everything nowadays, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's a
there's
counter
less, like,
opinion to everything.
Submission or blind obedience, which I'm all about critical thinking, but maybe we've gone really far on the other side of the spectrum with the critical questioning and not taking things with sincerity, for sure.
Yeah.
But AI, I think to our kids feels like this is legitimate. Even my grad students are using it, and they're like, "What do you think of this?" And it's scary sometimes. Honestly, I'm like, how did AI do that in a way where I'm like, I feel like I'm actually listening to humans who have read your work,
Right.
and my students don't use it to be sneaky or cheat. They're just like, hey, I've been playing around with this, and I'm all for it. I'm all for trying it out and finding meaningful ways to integrate it. But it is kind of scary, just what
Yeah.
what AI is doing.
Hey, Josh, you're good. Who's okay? Cool. So the other thing I wanted to bring up, because you were actually here for teaching, not just to chat with us, even though I would love
totally
for
come
you to
out to
come out
chat.
just chat. Yeah, right.
I
Hey,
enjoy
I'm
being
here
here.
for this. This is my whole job this time. I love it.
Sure.
It's something that's important, and you're in meetings with me, so you know where I'm going to go with this stuff. With management and leadership specifically, and we have things that obviously we don't want to talk about things that we don't have produced, but we can start with train the trainer,
Yeah.
because train the trainer is something that we are actively doing, and just like anything else we do, improving upon. Like you're my hey, trash this, tell me how bad it is, and we'll try
I
and
don't think
repair
I've ever said that to you,
it. But
but I could.
I
guess.
appreciate that. So with what are you? Because I know you have some ideas of projects, and you feel strongly about proper management, proper leadership. Do you want to talk about some of your opinions on those things real quick?
You know, a lot of my experience with calibration, labs, all that stuff, it comes from my dad, because my dad's a calibrator. And I don't have a lot of, and granted, it's his perspective, but I'll take it for what it's worth. I don't have very many reflections on positive work experiences, labs being well organized, well managed.
Josh is shaking his head. This is correct.
And I'm not knocking people. Obviously, I can't talk the talk because I'm not a calibrator. But when I think of what I know about the organization of the military and how people end up in calibration, and the lack of training just on that side, I know that there's not a ton offered for leadership, organizational management, quality management. That's a triggering word for some people, quality management.
Yeah,
But I do
people
really
have different feelings about quality.
They do, and I am not the biggest fan of quality people either. But I know that we need quality management. Like, without it, think about how things are going. So not only is the job important, but how it is organized and managed is equally as important, especially because our techs are coming in with no education or experience.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of pressure and expectation on our senior people. Some of them are just unofficial for their leadership and supervision. And
especially, sorry to interrupt, but especially in Cal, like there's no direct.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like shots in the dark, right? And I just think in general, I'm passionate about all of this stuff, and it's what I deal with directly in my field. I know what it's like to work for organizations with poor leadership and poor management, and you lose good people, and you have ineffective work. And ethics are important to me. You know, having integrity.
Yeah.
That's really important to me as just a value as a human being. So I think that bleeds into why I also think that this part is important. And we know what I did here on Monday was a half a day learning session on all of the intricacies that come from my field: learning theory, teaching theory, supervision theory, leadership theory, and what that means for these people who are either official or unofficial supervisors in their labs, working with newbies who have no experience, with the goal of it being better producing labs. When you have better producing labs, people are happier. And so some of the dark stories that I vicariously carry from my dad's experience are labs that were pretty toxic with emotionally abusive supervisors. And I'm like, well, they came straight from the Marines, like what you get what you get, right, when you come from the military. But the mental health impact was unfortunately really severe. So again, that's just like my personal passion for the world is I want people to be happy. I want them to be thriving.
And we're in a and I mean, we don't have time to go too deep on that, but
That'll be part two.
we just talked about, all sorts of things about performance anxiety or things like that. Having an environment where your pressure isn't the best measurement, but just getting something out the door is not.
There's these threats, and that's the word that I would use. I don't know that other people would use that, but that's really what it is. There's a threat to my job. There's a threat to my well-being. As I shared on Monday, we don't typically do things that we're not good at. And so if you're not feeling like you can successfully or even adequately perform something, and you know that your value for your place as an employee is hinged upon your performance, that takes a toll on a person. And
huge.
And sometimes the simple resolution to that is a supervisor just taking a little bit more time. And so one thing I explained on Monday is what we're presenting here with Train the Trainer does up the ante for the work on the supervisor's end, but the payback is a better functioning technician, thusly a better functioning lab, and all the work you put in on the front end, you're going to see that success on the back end. And it takes time. I can't say, after 3 months you're going to see success, but I can say after 3 months, assess your productivity,
Yeah.
assess your progress, and see what changes need to be
Yeah.
made. So we're giving them a super legit framework to operate within with the trust the process. It's going to eventually pay off. And I practice what I preach. I sit through these quality meetings, as I would call them, 2 to 3 times a year, upwards of 6 hours at a time, and it's maddening and I hate them, but like it's a necessary evil of the job. Some people really love that stuff and God bless them, but I just know like it's an essential, necessary component of my job. And because we do that, because we have policies, because we have rubrics, because we have procedures, we have KPIs, we have assessment methods. I'm not guessing. I'm not shot in the dark. I have a legitimate standardized approach. And so when I run into issues, which I always do, I don't feel like I have to figure it out. I
Right.
know like what I'm going to do. My team knows what we're going to do. And it's still heart aching at times, but not because I don't know what to do. It's just, I want people to be successful. So that's where it's hard for me.
And you can't escape every ounce of pain, right? Like,
No,
there are
life is
some
pain,
things-
princess.
yeah, there's
know.
going to be things along the way that, there are certain things that people won't necessarily like to train or, oh, I hate doing this thing. But
Yeah.
if you do it enough, things become a lot easier.
It does, and it's usually just one fraction of your job. It's not the entirety of your job. So some of my dreams that have been coming up because of conversations I'm having with calibrators, supervisors, laboratories. Again, I love what we're doing with Sign because we're legitimizing a career field that was already legitimate, but we're giving it a backing with an educational
Right.
foundation. And we've got a multi-tiered approach with level 1, level 2, level 3. And I would love to see us developing materials almost kind of like on the HR side.
Yeah.
With rubrics for performance evaluation. And that feels like a level 2 entity. But what I see as really cool about Sign is you can either start with level 1 education and testing on the front end, or we could just pick you up wherever you're at, give a level 1 assessment, or I like calling it an inventory. That's a
Right.
familiar word.
Yeah.
And we'll just gauge where your people are at. And then you can decide this group needs our level 1 education. This group, they're doing all right. Let's think about level 2. So it doesn't have to be, we have to get you right away out, when you get signed up for the job. We could really just pick up any company
Well,
where they're
yeah.
at.
And you can't always knock it all out with one fell swoop,
No.
so you kind of have to target certain
And
things.
so we have something that everybody can start with. And I think rubrics would be great for supervisors who, and this was a conversation I had on Monday with someone. We have somebody who does quality. We have someone that does performance evals. But that's where it's getting lost is we can't really rely on that person. And it took me a moment to think about it. I'm like, well, you have to objectify it. You have to externalize it. So that means we need to take some of like our level 1 criteria, turn it into some type of like performance evaluation rubric, and then people know what they're looking for
Right.
in these texts. And I think that accountability tool for text is also really important. We don't always like getting performance evaluation feedback or criteria, reflections, because inevitably we amplify something that needs to get better.
Sure.
But I guess I kind of want to believe that anybody who chooses this field and wants to stay in the field, some shred of them must want to improve.
Yeah.
And if we externalize it, then everything that we already talked about with the mental health and the internalizing, I think we're alleviating pressure on that by saying like, you're not a bad person. Like,
Right,
this
yeah.
isn't about you. Here are just the necessary things that you need to learn. And that's what I do in my job. If it's a remediation plan or if it's just like my evaluation of a product or assignment, I literally just sent an email to students. This grade is not about you and your worth. It's about what you turned in. So here's where you need to get better and grow. And I do think that alleviated a lot of the angst that I caused. But,
Yeah. No, I love that because it is. And this is a conversation I have had with you numerous times because getting over test hesitancy is a big hurdle for our industry. It just is because there's people, they kind of, and just amplifying your point, they come out of the military almost feeling like they're expected to know everything and that there is no more learning. It's like, no,
Sure.
what? We're always learning.
I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I've got a doctorate and I'm still learning. I've been
get
in the
over
field
it.
for over 10 years and because the world keeps changing, the field keeps changing. And
Oh,
that's,
absolutely, yeah.
That's okay. Change is a scary word. Test is a scary word. I think we just have to keep having conversations about it to help people see like, sure, there's some uncomfortableness that comes from this, but that's what growth is about. If we're not uncomfortable, then we're probably not growing. We're just stagnant. And you cannot be stagnant in this time and age. As I already just explained with the way the post-secondary is changing and the way high school is changing, it has changed my whole approach. And that's fine. It was uncomfortable to figure out a new way because my training is so long ago. I'm getting like in the moment training hands-on with teenagers. Super reliable, right? Teenagers are teaching me about how to do my job. So it is frustrating. It is confusing, but again, you just kind of submit to it and trust that you'll figure it out. And then once you do, it's much better these days.
Nice.
I would testify to that.
Well, that's great. Well, I think that it's obvious there's a need for an hour-long conversation that we have on this.
I mean, we've already been on here for like almost 45
Almost 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming on. Can people reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yes, Helena Stephens. I think I'm the only one, but
And we're working
counselor
on
educator. That's what you're looking for.
and we're working on ways that we can get you involved with labs if they would like a little bit more hands-on
Yeah,
with
I'll
setting
just
things
put
up.
a plug in for myself. I got super
Yeah,
positive
please.
feedback from my Monday session. I'm a strong believer in collaboration and consultation. And so all the things we're talking about with organizational management, learning, teaching, testing theory, all that stuff, bring in an outsider like me to really just bolster what is happening in the labs, give feedback, give advice, give consultation on how to structure and organize. I will teach, I will train. You don't need to try to figure it out or like remove the auspice of, like you said, I need to have it all figured out. I need to understand this. If you didn't take doctoral level classes in it, can you expect yourself to know this stuff?
Yeah, education's a real thing.
It's a real thing. So bring me out to your labs, fly me out there. I would be happy to do training and, again, consultation on just building a whole internal framework. And that's what it boils back to, is having an internal framework that everybody shares a common language for and a common understanding, and then it grounds you in all of your practices and your policies and your assessments and evaluations. And sign, I'm going to put a plug in for us, should
Appreciate
be built into that with our testing and our our inventories,
Yeah.
assessments and education, because I think that also answers the question that somebody asked on Monday. Well, I know that they need training, but where do I send them? You send them to us because we have a standardized systematic training, because I think we all agree at a level 1, it's objective. And we, from our group of experts, have validated, here's what a level 1
Yeah.
entry level person needs to know. So stop guessing where to send them and just send them to us, and
Right.
we'll give you all that and more.
And we'll help you out.
Boom.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you, Helena. I hope you had a great experience at the conference. You have been to one other, but I think that was an NCSLI, right?
No, it was this one.
It wasn't
It was
MSC?
4 years ago, though.
Okay.
I very much enjoy coming. I like getting out of the think tanks of my field, because there's
Yeah.
a lot of tricky
A little
elements
stuffy.
for me. A little bit, on the counseling side, we deal with identity politics and DEI and all of the woke culture. And I say that and I can hear my tone of voice. It's just to say, like,
You're not going to hear anything from us. It's your education peers are going to be like, hey, she shouldn't be saying
don't be
this.
talking like that. It's just so my side of the world can be very much just let me talk so that I sound important. And I'm like, and here are these group of calibrators who I could not live without. So I feel very humble coming into this. Like, I don't matter, and I love that. So I feel I think a sincere amount of pressure of like, be relevant for these people who make my world go around, and I like that atmosphere. I like
think-
that it's not about
I think you're
flexing
going to
anymore.
I think you're going to bring a lot more to the industry than you already have than
I
you
hope
realize.
so.
But so we're going to grow that as time goes on. Well, thanks again for coming on. So I'm going to have you on the main podcast here soon. Okay.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks. And for all of you, we're going to be right back with Michael Johnston from Fluke. So about 5 minutes on that. sound. We hearing me? See if we might help if we have your mics up.
That does help. Hey, now I can hear me.
You can hear
Oh,
you.
this is gonna be weird.
Welcome to the show. All right, so we got Gabe Dupree and Mr. Danny Dupree on the show. Welcome. First, we do want to talk about your son, but do you mind mentioning your history in metrology and things like that?
Oh, sure. So I got started in 2005. I joined the Marine Corps, and I said, give me something with a bonus.
Nice.
And so I randomly fell into metrology. I wound up loving it. I've had a great career. Well, I got out of the Marine Corps after 5 years, went to a Navy shipyard, worked at a Cal Lab there.
Where was that at?
Ingalls Shipbuilding. We build the DDGs, LPDs, and LHAs for the Navy.
Is that East Coast, West Coast?
Mississippi,
Oh, okay.
down on the Gulf
Pascagoula, I
Coast.
believe.
Did not know that. Huh.
So I left there and I went to the Pantex plant. That is the nuclear weapons assembly facility in the U.S.
I do know Pantex.
Yeah. And then I left there and went to NASA. I'm now at NASA's Stennis Space Center in South Mississippi, where we do the land-based rocket testing.
And probably your most illustrious achievement is you are a one of the members of the test creation for the CMT.
That's right. That was a good time. I loved the development of that test, getting to hash out some specifics about what we all valued and what we thought a good technician should know. It really showed the difference between like different labs, between captured
Right.
labs and commercial labs. We all value different aspects of what a technician should have,
Right.
what attributes we should test. And coming to an agreement on that took a while, but it was a lot of fun and really insightful. And we all wound up agreeing on some good concepts, some good middle ground.
Oh yeah, and I mean that test has been around for a little while now, and most people that take it, once they take it, they're like, oh, it makes sense, like what we're trying to achieve. Because imagine if you're going into a test, and I think we're not allowed to create a study guide. Like that has to be created by a third party for accreditation rules, or else we could make it so hard you have to buy our guide, right? Like that's I guess their way of protecting. But I'm sure as you're going along, you see that like trying to hone down, what is in that daily job, right? What, as a beginner, what are the things you have to know, and then agreeing upon it.
Yeah, the agreement part was pretty difficult sometimes. We had some heated conversations, but we had some good big personalities on there, so
Right.
it made it a lot of fun.
And I mean, you've been down a lot of the same roads I have. It's a big difference going from the military Cal to civilian Cal, and a lot of times, if you've never been outside of that ecosystem of the military Cal, you might not know. Hey, simple things like my favorite is if I'm ever talking to someone that's currently in and they're trying to come out or whatever, and they don't understand. Can we calibrate this greater than the manufacturer specs? Well, I mean, to the customer, I guess technically, as long as we have the ability, it's not going to last long, right? But in the military, you aren't doing that, right?
Right, and the military has such a great program. They actually make calibration and metrology really easy, but that doesn't always lend itself to an easy transition to calibration outside the military, depending on where you go. Even as a civilian, another military lab's going to be real similar.
Mm-hmm.
But as you go to different places where you're writing your own calibration procedures and looking at uncertainties and uncertainty budgets, I'm not sure that you get the greatest preparation for that part
Right.
of the job in the military, and it takes a while to build those skills and understandings. And it takes a desire, too, because there's nobody's out there really teaching it. I mean, I know we've got signed calibration school, and they're trying to fill that gap, but that comes from the need, right? There was
Right.
already a gap there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I came out, started signing to an already broken dam that's leaking water, right? And we're trying to keep the holes plugged because our industry's just pilfering constantly.
Right. And the number of technicians coming out of the military are dwindling anyway. So even if
Yeah.
they were providing 100% ready to go techs, there's still not enough.
Right. Yeah. From what I've heard, the numbers, and these are, I should say, these are numbers that I've been told from an inside source, but not an official source. So, but if it's the numbers that we're talking about these days, it's not enough to fill many labs, let alone all the needs. It's not enough to fill one lab's needs in some cases,
Right. And I can't tell you what year exactly it was, but the Marine Corps groundside calibration, when I was in, one year I was in, we had 164 ground side calibration Marines, Marine Corps wide.
Wow, that's
So
not many.
No, it's not many at all. And I know, there's air wing side, and I think they had bigger numbers. But, still, even if they had 10 times as many numbers as we did, it's not enough.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, frustrating, right? But I am very, very thankful for your participation in creating that test. It is something that I hope will live on for a very long time. So hopefully you'll be on future ones. I think we're going to do some sort of a rotation, but I think we need to keep some components of previous boards in place.
I would love to participate again. I learned a lot.
It was a lot of fun. Well, let's talk about your son. So Gabe. Uh-oh, your turn. So why are you here? What brings you to Measurement Science Conference other than your dad?
Well, me being interested, I mean, my dad is a major part of it. It is a avenue for, it's a science that not many people get into.
Right.
And, like, the world thrives on specialization, gotta do things better, and people pay for things they can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So why not pay me to do the things that you can't do?
Right.
So, like, I'm here. Like, why do plumbers get paid so much?
Right.
You don't want to deal with that.
I think Ryan was asking why you're here, though. How did you get here? What did you
on
do?
a plane.
No. What did you win?
I won the Measurement Science Conference scholarship.
Perfect. Well, I love all the answers. All of them I want. So let's start with that. So what did you have to do to win the scholarship? What are the things that you had to do?
There is a website with a surprisingly short application. It was super straightforward. Very appreciative for me, who tends to overanalyze stuff. Fill it out, send it back in, and answer some few short answer questions like personal statement, work history, your GPA, usual basic stuff, and
Sure.
then email it to MSC at scholarships.com.
Mm-hmm. Something like that, yeah.
Something very similar, and Mr. Mark Lindsay.
Very
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And then, so what does? I'm sorry, I'm a little unfamiliar with what it does. What's all included when you win? Is it the trip here and that type of stuff? Or?
It is attendance to the conference and 2 grants.
Wow, nice.
Very appreciative for both of those.
Yeah, for sure. Because I have 2 kids that are graduated now, and when we're trying to get those scholarships added up, anything is great.
Yeah. One of the requirements for it is you have to attend the conference to accept the scholarship.
Oh, okay.
So,
That too.
That does present a problem for some people traveling. So luckily, I was coming anyway to participate in the Measurement Science Conference, and it was something that we were able to do.
So growing up, how did your dad explain what he does? Like it's a classic joke amongst metrologists that at dinner parties, yeah, I'm a calibrator, and it's like, okay, now I have to explain what that is.
Well, so there's many different ways I can take this. So he, a very passionate dude about his work, and obviously being a kid, you're going to be like, hey, Dad, what'd you do today?
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, let me bother you. What was your day at school? I'll tell you about my day at school after you tell me how your day at work was. And and I was like, fine, here's what it means, right? Okay, fine, here's how this RF equipment works. Here's this idea. Here's this. And then eventually just builds on top to each other. I still am not sure I can hold an entire conversation about metrology with you.
Sure.
But those little stepping stones and constant prodding my dad.
Yeah.
It's been great to see you grow, though, because it went from basically giving you ideas and platitudes about what I do to last year, me and your friend and you were talking about square waves and Nyquist theorem. And
Wow.
it was great to see the growth there.
I mean, even I have a daughter that's, I don't know your age, I didn't catch that. I have a daughter around 13, and she does, for school, the stuff that we do when we go around and train, we have little procedures written up for our equipment, our training equipment, and she tests those procedures for me. So I'm starting her young too.
Awesome.
So is it something that, from what you know, because I know my oldest daughter, she went to a go with dad to work day, and it was unfortunately the most boring time you could ever go to a cal lab. It was right around Christmas and it was empty. We didn't have a lot of workload in, so I don't think she ever recovered from that. I never could get that one to entertain being a calibrator. Do you have interest in the field?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I get to brag to all my engineering friends back at Mississippi State about like, okay, but have you guys considered this? And they're like, no.
Oh, I bet that's
And-
huge.
Oh, it's a great conversation starter. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm also in the honors college, so I'm surrounded by all of the like, it's too smart for their own good people.
Yeah.
And like, oh, I know everything. Oh, but do you know this? So
Right.
now it's also super cool to see like, you know, poking fun at my aerospace friends. I'm like, okay, but do you actually know how this works? Where are you getting those numbers from? Like, why is it important?
Yeah.
So now it's kind of become an ongoing joke between me and one of my friends about, like, okay, so where'd you get that number? Metrology
Right.
is the study of, and we
Yeah.
just go like straight up reading the Wikipedia page to each other.
Well, and I know when some of my kids' friends find out, they're like so fascinated by that concept, right? Like,
Exactly.
hey, so this vending machine, can you calibrate that? And then, my daughter or whoever expecting me to say no, and it's like, well, does it have a temperature sensor? Maybe. There are calibratable things in almost everything these days.
Absolutely.
Well-
So I never got to take Gabe to work because a lot of the places I worked were
Very
secure
secretive.
facilities. Yeah.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
I think
Hypothetically,
he
guys.
works there.
Yeah, but what I did get to do, thanks to being able to go to these conferences and everything, was bring back, knickknacks and gifts. But NIST always has their,
Cards.
I don't know what it's called. I want to say Educators Corner, but I don't think that's the right. But they have education resources, and so they have the League of SI Superheroes.
Superheroes.
The cartoons that are on
Yeah.
YouTube that no one knows about are fantastic.
It's
They
on
actu-
YouTube?
It's on
Yes.
YouTube.
Okay.
They have 2 or 3 episodes on YouTube.
Okay.
And they also make
didn't know
trading
that.
cards, so we got the trading cards.
They
lo-
updated recently.
Yeah, he
so
loves
I'm gonna
the trading
permanently keep
cards.
my old ones.
I have the trading cards. My kids have them. I didn't know there was a cartoon.
Do you have more?
No. I did.
I need my friend's knickknacks.
I think that was a couple years back that they had them here, didn't they?
They've had them every year. They're just not here this year.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's what it is.
Long story about that.
yeah.
We'll send you the next set. All right.
Yeah.
So you're going to Mississippi State right now?
Yes.
How do you like that?
Super cool. It's giant campus, but
Yeah.
very green, very atmosphere is really awesome. There's places to set up hammocks. A lot of history there. The drill fields is just a nice open area for people to chill.
Oh yeah, that's like is that an ag school, like an agriculture?
It used to be known as Mississippi A&M or
A&M?
A&M.
A&M, yeah, it's an agricultural school.
Yeah.
They also have most of the state's engineering schools.
Most of the American Souths.
Yeah.
Engineering School.
And one of the top architecture programs in the country, too.
So why'd you choose Mississippi State? Is that just you like their programs and stuff like that?
That was an aspect. Both my parents went there.
You're that's your alma mater.
That's right.
Nice.
Me and my wife both graduated from the same program. I was
I didn't know that. What
Yeah.
did you graduate from?
interdisciplinary studies.
Okay.
So I just got out of the Marine Corps, and my wife decided to go back to school, and she made it work online. And so 4 or 5 years later, we were talking about me going back to school and using my GI Bill before it expired, and I knew she had done it, and she knew she had done it. So really, it was a surprise. I showed up home from work one day, and she said, "I signed you up for classes. Your classes start in 2 weeks."
Oh, that's so cool.
It was also terrifying at
Sure.
the time, but I am so glad she did it. I
Yeah.
needed that push to go finish my degree, and so I managed to finally finish my bachelor's degree at 38 years old. So
Very
hopefully
cool.
he's getting a big head start on me with that.
Yes. Well, I went back to school, and I would have finished if I didn't change degrees. But I am also glad I went back as an adult.
I'm surrounded by old people. Gosh.
We are very old. See the gray? I used to not have these grays.
So did he.
Yeah. We were young once. Remember that?
I do remember that.
Were we in around the same time? When were you in?
2005 to 2010.
Yeah.
Was that when the dinosaurs walked the earth?
Yeah, it was.
Pretty
We
close.
actually had a war against the dinosaurs.
I see. With your wooden clubs.
Micrometers
Yeah,
and calipers.
yeah. We finally won when we started throwing gauge blocks. That's when we won the war.
Yeah, it's a true story. Well, So, I just lost what I was going to ask. It was something about Mississippi State. Oh, the engineering programs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think your dad would probably also agree with this. Well, it's especially on civilian side, Cal. I deal with a lot of engineers,
I'm sorry.
and yes, because a lot of times every sensor is perfect, right, and as designed, and we have to kind of ruin that facade and say like, no, there are things like uncertainty and all that. So now that you're getting a little bit more experience and you've had exposure to this, do you think this is stuff that should be taught somewhat in high school? Things a little bit more around how nothing is perfect in like measurements and stuff.
So I think the ideas should be discussed, especially in like a maybe not really like a full scoop, but like a physics course, some maybe mid-level
Yeah, like
chemistry.
added to an
Yeah.
existing program.
But like seeing these aerospace engineers going like with the tape measure, just yep, that's good, and like just no concept of it, no application of it, just being like, yep,
Right.
good enough to me.
It was always like thermocouples and stuff for me in the real world where they, they're seeing a temperature and they're like, no, that's the temperature. I'm like, what? No, that is within like 2 degrees maybe, depending on the sensor.
Well,
Yeah.
even expanding upon that, I've seen people put thermometers directly against the glass, even if it's
Oh.
up in beakers. So like, I feel like
Oops.
yeah, consistently too. So I was like, maybe there's a little bit more to this. Like, what are we actually measuring, and why are you measuring it? That might fall into more of like improving, like maybe not common sense, but like the application of it, because like that is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Maybe not common sense, but maybe common knowledge. Like, what is a common knowledge base? And some of that might be.
Well, my dad said there's a quote from a guy that's saying metrology is the science of measurement and its application. I'm dragging you into this, so haha. I can't remember who said it, but like knowing how to use equipment properly is important. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
feel
I'd
like
ha-
that should be discussed.
I'd have
too.
to look up who said that was a NASA guest lecture. Basically, someone was asking the question in a nutshell, what is a metrologist? And he said, well, by definition, metrology is the science of application and its measurement. If you've ever taken a measurement or used it for anything, congratulations, you're a metrologist. Now we need to find out if you're a good one or a bad one.
Nice.
And I really liked that. That one
Yeah.
resonated with me.
That's really good. What are you pursuing like degree wise?
So I'm in their current. It's called a 4+1 or a Thrive in 5. It's the accelerated master's program.
Okay.
Because there's only like 7 sophomore math majors
Oh,
right
wow.
now. Yeah, really small department. There's not an undergrad in statistics, so the closest thing I could get with the quick line into my master's is go under BS of mathematics there,
Wow.
and then jump directly ship for a year, maybe year and a half into statistics. So I'm currently like doing non-parametric tests. I can talk for days and days about the Mann-Whitney U test. oh, so much fun coding R. This class has been a
He needs to meet
trip.
Greg Sanker. Have you met Greg Sanker?
I know Greg. I think they met at NCSLI.
Oh yeah, he's
Yeah.
a statistic guy for like well-known one in our field.
Is
And
he Indy Soft?
yeah,
Yes.
I think he was at the. Actually, now I'm talking out my rear.
yeah. Well, he was at. He'll probably be at NCSLI, but he's been at previous ones. So if you've been to those, then for sure.
Yeah, he's usually here. Greg is one of the best statisticians around and great application.
And also, I was just gonna say, and applying it to what we do.
And making it understandable. That's
Right.
the hardest part. So he wrote this paper at NCSLI. It was All Roads Lead to UC 95. And I was reading this paper, and I talked to him about it later, but it's the first time that I ever actually understood. So we all know about end-of-period reliability, EOPR, and everybody knows how to check your observed reliability for the most part, in this field.
There's a lot of people that don't.
Okay.
But I
But
get, yeah.
his paper went into beginning of period reliability and how you actually figure out your beginning of period reliability, which sets the baseline for everything, and then even going back and figuring out your average over period reliability for the instrument. And those concepts had never made sense to me before until I read his paper, because he was able
Sure.
to write it in a way that made it useful for me and
Nice.
in a way that I could understand.
You're gonna have to send me this paper because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
With permission, I got to hit Greg up.
Well,
for that.
and I mean, I think you can attest. Like, we didn't have even when I was in the Marine Corps, I went to Advanced ISD. As an instructor, I got to poke around in the advanced microwave course and stuff like that. I was a backup instructor and all that. But there wasn't a how to run a lab right, management and statistics, like crunching important. Like Ginger was just on before the lunch talking about important metrics. Like, what are metrics that are important? Because obviously we could sit there and say, oh, well, turnaround time. Well, then if you start focusing on that and running a lab with turnaround time as the focus, then people are just going to try and get things out as fast as possible.
So, if
Yeah.
I may interrupt
Yeah.
here, not enough people, in general, I'm not even going to say specifically here, not enough people know about the concept known as, I believe, Goldhart's Law or Goodhart's Law. It's the idea that once any statistic becomes a goal, it's no longer a valid statistic.
Yes.
So, like, if that does become your goal, turnaround time, guess what? People are going to start cutting corners and to do that.
So what's the solution? So are metrics better kept to just purely managers and not shared with the ones achieving those metrics, or?
I'm a math major, not a philosophy major.
Well, what do you think, Dad?
So I think they all have their place, right? When you first implement a new measure or KPI or whatever, it's probably a good measure for a little while, right?
Right.
And so when you capture what you need to know about that metric and you get your process under control, maybe it's a good idea to go on and move on from that metric and find a new metric, a new place where you want to pursue improvement. A lot of us are stuck with ISO 9001, AS 9100 requirements, and so our only metrics that we're tracking in our lab right now are on-time delivery and on-quality delivery, and that's specifically required in AS 9100. So it really limits our focus on what we can do with our metrics.
Sure.
And some of that is just making sure that you're actually taking those metrics properly. You're doing them in a meaningful way. One of the problems I see with our on-quality metric is that we have multiple layers of quality checks, right?
Right.
And so there's a scenario there where my worst tech in the lab making the most amount of errors has a good intermediate quality check that we don't track that would make him look fantastic because the guy in the middle is catching all the errors.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we're only tracking it at the end when it's ready to go out the door. If there's still an error, that's where we're tracking it at. And I'm like, maybe that's not the best measure.
Yeah.
Let's
That's an
figure out.
interesting. Yeah, that's a good example of the implementation and how it can change the outcome and the view of that outcome.
Right, and that just comes from some kind of metrology intuition, really. I've seen things in the past where, we're trying to test a particular parameter of test equipment, and we're doing a really poor job at it. I won't...
Allegedly.
Sometimes I've been in places where engineers had to design the calibration process for their own thing, and no one really paid a lot of attention to it. We just did what they said, right? And so we had this one thing that had perfect reliability. It had never failed a cal. It was a high pot tester.
Okay.
And
Really
so
impressive.
when I
for
did
a high pot tester too.
well, here's why. When I did a review of it finally, the procedure actually had us disconnect the high voltage network and just test the panel meter on it. No one was testing the high voltage network. When I went back and asked the engineers what the expected impedance should be for the actual voltage, they had no idea.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so this thing turned out to be putting out about 150 more volts than it was ever expected to once we got to the bottom of it. And so this is just making sure that our design of experiments works.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I don't know that we put enough emphasis on that in metrology, is like really looking into your design of experiments. Am I monitoring and testing the things that I think I'm testing?
Well, I think also what happens, I think, sorry, I'm stuttering here. A good way of looking at it is, in many cases, these labs are set up and have been running in a way, always run this way, right? That classic saying. And for decades, there is no metrics, or there is no of these little intermediate checks other than ones that are required, right? Like you're mentioning standards that say, hey, you must do these certain things. So then those get focused on, and then you're kind of just leaving out certain things, or even the thought of, hey, we could improve upon this, right? Because, hey, this is what's prescribed. I mean, don't you agree? Like sometimes we find that in certain labs that maybe the mentality is like, the customer's not paying for this. Like, we don't need to do this. And it's like, yeah, you kind of do.
Yeah, so I think we struggle with that as metrologists. Why are we all competing with the lowest common denominator cal lab? They're the cheapest price, and the customer doesn't always understand the value that
Right.
quality calibration brings to the process. And until we can get our customers to understand that we're adding value by providing them a quality calibration, we're all going to be competing with the lowest common denominator cal lab out there. And eventually we're all going to be competing with sticker printers.
Right.
And who can print the sticker the cheapest and the fastest. And nobody wants that to be the case, because we do add value. We definitely add value to the process, but the customer has a piece in that too. They have to understand their measurement process to see the value that we're providing.
Yeah. And luckily I get a chance to intervene a little bit, because sometimes I'll be out there at the customer and they'll be like, oh, well, we do this. And it's like, oh, that's not right. So stop. Let's go a different direction on that. And then once they understand why, usually they'll buy in. But it's the places that, even though if you explain it and they're like, oh, we're just going to go the other way, those are the ones that scare me.
Right.
You know?
And we're just as guilty of it as Cal Labs, too. So it may be not in measurement because that's where we're most familiar, but I mentioned AS 9100.
Oh, sure.
You know, there's a lot of clauses and stuff in there, and how many of those requirements in AS 9100 or even 17025 are we just doing things to make it a check in the box, whereas it's really designed to give you an opportunity to improve somewhere. So a specific example is we were doing our certification audit for AS 9100, and we kind of got dinged on not having management reviews. And we justified it. We're like, we do part of this meeting over here counts as part of our management review, and then we do this other thing over here. And we justified it. We went way out of our way to just check the box, right? And I said, well, let's stop. Let's just really do a management review. Let's look at what's required, and let's figure out how to make this a value-added process to us. And so since then, we just implemented in January, right? And we all finally completed some new job descriptions, some new positions we needed to fill in the lab. We're actually making progress on some of our continuous improvement goals. And this is brand new, and we just implemented it, so we're terrible at it, right? This is the worst process we're ever going to have. It's going to get better from here.
Right.
And 4 months later, we're already seeing huge gains in what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that because, you know, last year we started a beta of our Train the Trainer, and now we've improved upon it that now it should be out of beta this year for the next time we run it, because this is something we do for our partnered labs. It's the same thing, right? Like everything is a hot dumpster fire at a lot of these labs, and they're all concerned about making this perfect training program. I'm like, just put together a training program and you'll improve upon it. Like, stop worrying about every single detail and start building those things that you absolutely need. And then, you know, if a certain lecture that you're doing or demo or, you know, a practical, you know, you don't have people retaining from that, then change it.
Right, you can always go back and fix it. You just have to start.
If
right?
if that one didn't go well, okay, then next time. It's similar to this podcast. This is the practice year. You know, if this goes well, we're going to do it next year as well. But what's the harm, right? Get out there and do it, right?
This is great.
Yeah. No, shameless plug. Go ahead.
There was something that Danny and you kind of brushed up on that I don't feel like gets enough notice. Sometimes it's not always that you have a bad data, or, well, maybe not bad data per se. Sometimes the solution is asking better questions.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be well, we've always done it this way, or, oh, we were just checking this one thing. Well, that's unhelpful to anybody. Why did you ask that question? Oh, wait, I was actually looking for this. Oh, okay, so now I can actually get, like, more nuance, more data, better data. Because, like, bad data in, bad data out.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
Even in the, sure, you can write all these things down, but, like, all that datafication, what are you going to do with it? Does it matter? You have to use the data somehow, and you have to get the good ones. So ask the good questions to get there. Now, granted, there's always going to be some underlying, oops, that didn't mean it that way, some interpretability to things. No one's perfect, but you can always improve it. And also that also applies to certain training programs. Like, sure, it might have been not awesome the first time, but, like, the plan, make a stupid plan and then fix it.
Sure.
Once that stupid plan breaks.
Hey, you're quoting me here.
I know that's copyright
good
me.
advice.
It is official. It's all my advice. Every time you say that, you owe me money.
Love it. Well, we're getting close to the end of this subject of this what's it called?
Podcast.
No, well, segment. Now Mississippi State is the Bulldogs, right?
Yeah.
So if metrology had a mascot, what would it be?
Guy in glasses.
Oh, man.
Monsieur clipboard.
I do have a quick joke about that. So, my first measurement science conference ever, I believe, I don't know if Dawn Cross was the president that year or what. I didn't know who she was. I didn't know anybody here. And I walk up to the registration table and I go, yes, ma'am, I'm looking for the nerd conference. And she cracks up. So Dawn thought this was the best joke ever. And the whole week out here, she would yell at me across the pool because we were in different towers. She'd be like, "Hey, nerd!" And
That's
so
awesome.
I told her she's talking about, you know, how much longer she's going to be involved. And I said, well, when you're not here, then I'll get to be the first biggest nerd here.
That's right. You'll be top nerd.
That's right, because right now she's number one.
You can't argue with that. Hey, and the clipboard. See, you missed out. Your dad and I grew up in a day and age that I think it was like WordPerfect or something like that. They had a
Before or after
paper
the
clip.
dinosaurs?
Well, it was after because it was a computer, but a paper clip with glasses and stuff like that. So
Oh,
that
Clippy.
yeah, so that mascot's already taken in some way.
Yeah.
We'll have to come up. So next year, if you're here, we need a better mascot.
Well, if you want to show up to state, I'm sure that Bully would look very nice in some sunglasses.
Talk to some of your graphic design friends.
Oh,
See if
there
they can
you
come
go.
up with a metrology
That's
mascot.
not a
Hey,
bad
if
idea.
you know anybody that does video editing, hit me up. Like if they're all into like the YouTube editing and all that.
Okay.
I'm sure I can find a dumb schmuck.
You might get to meet my daughter. That's actually
That's fine,
something
too.
She's 14. She's still learning a lot
Talent,
of stuff, but
talent is talent.
she's very interested in video editing. She's actually into voice acting, so she's auditioned for some roles, voice acting and stuff.
So I'm trying to do less editing. So someone trying to do more editing is someone that I would like to know. Well, thank you both for being on, and congratulations again on your victory for the scholarship.
Appreciate it.
It's getting late. I'm forgetting simple words now. But thank you for coming on, Danny. Of course, thanks for coming on and bringing your son out.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ryan.
All
Really
right.
enjoyed it.
And for those of you watching, we have... Who did we decide is next? We have a guest coming up here shortly in about 10 minutes. So.
Names from a hat. Let's just
Right.
pick names from a hat and drag
We're going
someone
to throw
over.
a rock, and the first metrologist that drops is on the show.
Man, I have a Frisbee around here somewhere. Whoever catches it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. You should be able to hear me. Let's get you guys. So we have a little background music for a minute while you guys are getting set up.
How close do you want it?
It's perfect. You'll just want to turn. There you go. Perfect. You should be able to hear yourself too.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. All right. There we
All
go.
right.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Why are you so low?
Because I'm not speaking very loud.
Oh. You had me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
You had me worried. I was like, what is going on?
Just me being a jokester.
Now you see the problems I have to deal with all the time.
Yeah.
You know what? All those times you've told me and I've ignored you, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it comes out.
Well, welcome back to MSC 2025, everyone. You may recognize our guests. They've been on my podcast. I've been on yours. I don't think I've been released
Not
yet.
released
Should
yet.
I not even say anything?
Coming soon.
I'll mute that. No, just kidding. I wish I had a dump button.
It's okay.
But welcome, Chuck Ellis, Howard Zion.
Hello.
Welcome once again to the podcast. How are you enjoying MSC 2025?
Lovely.
Well, we just we got through with the lunch, which was another
The
great
Whittington
lunch.
Award?
Yeah, we presented Whittington Award to
You did a great job of presenting that.
Yeah, that was great.
yeah
He
Don
made-
Don Cross. We gave it to
He
Don
made
Cross.
Dawn cry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
she
is
was
our goal.
surprised.
Yeah. So now I'm not the only one that cries on stage.
You achieved what you were looking for.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was good. So
The element of surprise. That's what we want.
yeah. So the class is done. We're done presenting. Now we can start drinking.
That's right. You guys had a class today. Do you mind just mentioning what it was? What did you guys...
Back to basics.
Yes. So that's the Metrology 101 Back to Basics that Tim Mason's been putting on for years. We've participated in the past as well, but this was a chance for us to talk to mostly newbies, right? I pulled the class, and there were a lot of people who were brand new to it, like 4 or 5 out of the room,
Oh, yeah.
and then only like 2 or 3 that are just around 5 years of experience.
Wow.
So somewhere between 0 and 5,
That's perfect.
which is good.
Yeah.
Right. My topic was measurement uncertainty, guard banding type of things, how that applies to the calibration or product testing, same thing, same
Sure.
concept. And then I was followed up by the great Chuck Ellis.
With accreditation and proficiency testing. Go figure. Me talk about proficiency testing.
You, of all people.
I know. Go figure.
Hey, so I did have a question come through one of my students, and I didn't have the exact best way of answering it. And this is a great way of just transferring right into our conversation. What happens if you fail a proficiency test?
Well, you're supposed to fill out some sort of corrective action. So whatever internal process you currently have in place as part of your accreditation, you want to follow that. Normally that includes some type of car action, determine exactly why you actually did not get a satisfactory performance.
See.
I mean, just because you participated and you got a E sub n that's greater than 1, really doesn't mean you failed the test. Just mean that you have something that you didn't do correctly.
Got it.
It could be
Okay.
your uncertainty is not correctly done. It's not a failure. It just means you're not doing your uncertainty correctly. So that's an opportunity for improvement more than a failure.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting way of, I guess that gives you an insight to the way that people view it as like, I failed
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
So you know how we were just before this recording talking about reviewing your own work and missing things? Right?
Yes.
You're just kind of forest for the trees type of thing.
Uh-huh.
And it happens, right? You get so embedded in the process that you're developing or that you're doing that you miss the obvious things. And so it's same thing with proficiency testing. When you see that your E sub n is different than 1, you could take a look at it yourself and you may see, oh my gosh, I fat fingered that uncertainty value. Of course
Right.
it's going to fail, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or it may not be so obvious, but even the advisors, when they're taking a look at that, those results, it may be very evident to them, right? Because they're taking
Yeah.
a different look at it, a different perspective, and they're saying, oh yeah, here's why you did this. This doesn't make sense. But it's also important for the person that is going through that PT to understand the purpose, the root cause, correct it, and apply that going forward.
Yeah, about 80% of the time, it's usually an administrative error.
Right.
And only 20% where they did something technically wrong, where it's the wrong type of equipment they use, or something along those lines.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that I had a chance to ask that, because I don't think I've been a part of a PT that came back with any corrective action necessarily needed type thing. But
Sure.
Now, we just had the scholarship, the MSC Scholarship Award winner on, and we were chatting about some things. He's at Mississippi State. One of the things that came up, we were talking about high school education and going into college and stuff. You guys are perfect ones to ask. Do you think that things like measurement uncertainty and things a little bit more practical about how the world works and how measurements work. Does that belong in high school in some ways? Do you think that's something that...
So the foundation of measurement, uncertainty, probability, and statistics, that's important. And I think that's a fundamental concept that high school students should understand, right? Not to a detailed level. You don't have to understand every different probability curve
Sure.
and how all the calculus behind it. But certainly the concept of how it applies in the real world,
Right.
the applications. Here's where you'd use this. Here's where you would see this result. So that they have a connection to that that they can take forward in life. And whether they use it or not in their jobs or whatever, you may use it in your daily life. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, because one thing that was brought up that I guess I didn't think about it is, people are cruising around and they see, that bank and it has, the time, and then it will say the temperature, and then they'll look in their car and they'll see them different, and they'll be like, why, like it doesn't always click,
Right, exactly.
those things. And so it makes sense, at first glance when you talk about it, it's like, oh yeah, why isn't that stuff, more practical things like these sensors and a tape measure are not going to be exact, and you could get two tape measures, put them together, and they won't be the same, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely happens.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's very common.
So what a little change of focus. How's your response been on the podcast so far?
Good, and we're kind of surprised. People seem to like, as obviously Paul was a great one that we
Yeah.
did. He was really good.
He's
That's
the
a
one
golden
that,
guest.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have, what, 4 released right now?
I think 5.
Oh, is there a 5th one?
Fifth one was today.
Oh, I didn't know that. Look, I learned something new on your podcast.
Always
I have to
learning
come here to learn about that.
This is the news of the industry.
Well, the ones we've done,
Paul's getting the best reviews so far.
the best.
Yeah.
But people seem to like Howard and I banting back and forth.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, I don't know why that is, but I mean,
We're called chatterbots for a reason.
There is, it's some people might call it not necessarily the odd couple, but just, a good riffing relationship, right?
He's Felix Unger. Oh my gosh, I just dated myself to 40 years ago.
I was just about to say, how many people are going to... I know the reference because of my family growing up. We watched that stuff. Yeah, that's going to be a tough one for people to know what that is.
I actually, in speech class in middle school, I think it was, we had to come up with a script that we would recite, right? Or poem or something like that. I picked The Odd Couple, one of their episodes, like a 2-minute spiel, and I had to memorize every word and say it in front of the class. Scared to death, right? At that age, did not like speaking in front of anyone.
Yeah.
But it was a good exercise.
It's so funny, common themes that are coming up. So Dr. Helena Stephens was on earlier, and we were talking about performance anxiety, because testing, like we have people that are afraid to test, right? I don't
Right,
want to take
yeah.
the certification test. I've been doing this for 15 years. And if they fail, that's what they're scared of. Like, what does that mean about me? Just means you haven't learned certain things, right? But I was talking about growing up, going to church. Like my grandparents would make me go to church, and you have to speak,
Yes.
and it would
Or
just turn
sing.
black, and I couldn't see.
Do you ever have to
know.
sing in front of the church?
No, I don't sing.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah, I would never want to. I don't think I ever sung in church.
no, we always had to. We always had to every Sunday go up and say part of the sermon. We would, have to go up and say one of the palms or whatever. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you had to wear your Sunday best. Oh yeah, that was.
yeah.
that
I
was-
would. I just lost vision. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was.
So
good
going
old
back
days.
to that Felix Unger type of
Yeah.
odd couple thing, in that 2 minutes, don't ask me to recite it. It's long ago. It's gone from my memory. But the one term that I took, or 2-word term that I took from that, was verve and panache. And I used that actually with Paul Reese on our podcast, right? It had stuck in my mind all these years. And I said, Paul, you just have so much verve and panache. And he's like, I don't even know what those words mean.
What does it mean? What does verve mean?
Excitement and vigor, right? And vigorous, motivation, just, able to speak clearly and succinctly and just with passion.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And he's like, I thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the podcasts are, we have someone else that's got a good podcast, but the point is, I think we're getting more metrology podcasts. And what I've got from the context, I have a lot of people that I talk to on a daily basis, even though I'm retired, that still reach out. And with the 3 podcasts that are out there now, it's giving people a selection where they can select these podcasts
Right.
and read them rather than just have the one. There's a selection now where they can download all 3 and it's more entertainment for those people that want to learn more about metrology.
Absolutely. Well, and I've said this is my own personal opinion, and I feel this way about anyone that has any type of eyes on them. There is this oversaturation, and I'm in the school a lot,
Yeah.
and then me on the podcast a lot. That's why I brought in Henry, because I don't want people to overhear me.
Sure.
Right.
So I definitely like having more of those selections out there, so everyone isn't tortured by me all the time.
Yeah.
Tortured.
Well, you got a great voice for podcast.
Well, luckily, I guess. That's what they tell me. I hate it. You got to understand how much I edit of myself. I am sick of hearing me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm told I have a face for radio.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And a body.
Took me a second to process what you said.
He definitely belongs on radio. You would not go for TV.
Backhanded compliment.
But I mean, are you guys enjoying it?
It's a lot more work than what we thought.
A little bit, yep.
it's a lot of work. So, wish you would have told us that before we decided to do it. How much work it
Why
is.
tell you everything?
Well, look, I'm sure you've experienced this where you have technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Trying to get things connected, running, videos not choppy, the audio's not missing or whatever, people connecting. There's a lot of things that can go wrong.
Yes.
Right? And you're trying to schedule these things and get them knocked out so that marketing can do their editing and get it released on
Yeah.
time.
That's what I need. I need the marketing to do my editing.
Yes, you're doing
Where's
your
my
own.
marketing team?
That's a lot.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I have a podcast I've been waiting to release, but I had to do a lot of extra recovery because when with Rob Kanacki,
Yeah.
the Zoom failed us.
Oh.
It was Zoom. It's on both my recording and on Henry's. So it's like one of those things. This is a guest that I can't just ask to come back willy nilly. I don't need these failures
Yes.
of
Yeah.
Correct.
the software or whatever.
Yeah, because rescheduling then bumps the schedule and
Right.
trying to reschedule the timing. We're both pretty busy elsewise besides the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And we've got things to do, and it can't always fit that in. So
And scheduling 3 different people is almost
it's
impossible.
very difficult. Yes,
Now, Howard, so you're saying you're busy?
a little bit.
That's crazy.
A little bit.
Yeah, probably not many. I couldn't even imagine what your day to day is like. What are you able to share anything of like? What is the life like of a chief corporate metrologist?
Okay, let's calm it down a little bit. So I run the portion of our business or segment of our business that is embedded operations. It's clients that have a large enough volume of instrumentation and they don't want to run their own CAL program and they hire us to do that. So I embed people and assets and software and whatever else I need to run their operation. I've got a number of those. We're I think at 18 at this point.
Yeah.
All over the country, one in Puerto Rico. Open to taking that worldwide when our customers need it, right? And that requires that I have a team that'll travel anywhere to set these up.
Yeah.
Because you don't start with people hired and ready to run, but you got to start doing the work right away.
Right.
So that's what I'm focused on. And we've had more than that number over the years, right? Some come and go. Some clients are closing up their facilities and moving elsewhere, or just shutting it down altogether. So we do lose some of those for that reason, but then we gain some more. So those startups take anywhere, well, I mean, just think about the time it takes to find and recruit and hire people,
Yeah.
get them onboarded and ready to run on their own, right? And if you have anywhere between 2 and 10 or 12 people at a site, that takes a while. So 60, 90 days, some have taken a little longer,
Sure.
usually not shorter than that. So I've got to have people dedicated to being there for that time until we get it up and running. And
So-
that takes a special type of
yeah, like
employee to do that.
yeah, because you got to be away from. I imagine. Like there was a point in my life when I was single that I would have loved like a traveling gig
Yes.
that you can a few months and get something set
we've
up.
found some people like that. I have a wonderful team of people. I love my team, and I can rely on them. They're dedicated to the clients, and that's really what I'm focused on, taking care of our clients, because then that takes care of everything else.
I will give an unsolicited compliment. I work a lot with Transcat. You guys have a great leadership team, at least the ones that I've worked with.
Yep.
That I will definitely agree with what you're saying, because you can tell in the way that they discuss their priorities and the things that they're trying to take out, and you're like, okay, they're I think you can understand what I'm trying to be somewhat vague, but
I think what you're saying is we have verve and panache.
you have verve and panache. I need to. That's our new metrology
Yeah, we're gonna
motto or
use that.
something.
Yeah.
We did ask that if metrology had a mascot, what would it be?
Well, the NIST actually has a bunch of mascots.
Didn't we say that on one of our, I think with yours, which is not out yet, but I'm going to say it. This
Did
is
we?
live. Did you bring him with you?
Your octopus.
Oh,
The
Gary.
the octopologist. Gary the octopologist, right? He's
That's
an
right.
octopus.
He's
He
now
has 8 arms. He can do a lot of metrology all at once. I love
Yeah.
that.
Imagine that's at least 4
Yeah, both the measurements.
micrometers at once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
I like it. I'm going with it.
Well, SI had a years tried to become cute and get younger people involved. Remember they had all those,
The cards.
not just the cards,
Oh.
they had these avatars that they had. Don't you remember that?
For each of the SI.
Each of the SIs,
Yes.
yeah.
I think that's what he's talking about.
Is it still the same?
They turned them into trading cards.
I didn't know that.
I found out today they have cartoons
Yeah.
on YouTube. I didn't know that. I knew the trading cards.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I saw them in a magazine,
Yeah.
in a regular,
So they're the superheroes of SI.
yes.
Yeah, and don't they have little like Sir Ampere and
Something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
something- yeah.
See, that's a good idea. We need to get those like Pokemon,
Right, exactly.
where all the kids are into metrology trading cards. Wouldn't
Start
that
them
be
young.
Wouldn't that be funny? I do all this work, podcasts and all this stuff, and the thing that really gets metrology out there is like a Pokemon
Right.
metrology
Yeah,
game of some
yeah.
kind.
Metrology indoctrination. It's a little scary to me.
Ooh, yeah, we need propaganda.
Well, we got to do something because we're really lacking in training of the new technicians.
Yeah.
Getting new technicians is a huge problem industry-wide for metrology, and we need an answer. And we need more than just a small answer. We need a large answer.
Yeah, I've said for a long time we need a Super Bowl commercial type thing. Like, what are our options? Like, honestly, like what are ways that we could even get more attention to what
How
we
do you make metrology sexy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
How do you attract
this
people
podcast
to it?
isn't enough. I mean, look at us.
Now,
Again, face for radio.
you
Yeah.
want me to undo my button here? Is that what you want?
I mean, wait.
There you go. There you go.
I love it. Look at that.
There we go. Get our sound effects going.
Right. Yeah. But Howard's right. We got to make it sexy. We got to do something where kids at the 11th, 12th grade, they want to start, this industry, get used to it, get involved with it, understand that it's a great career path.
Mm-hmm.
There's you can go a long ways in this business.
Yeah.
It's a great career.
Talking earlier with Mike Walsh at ESCO about this very topic, right? And trying to find the right people who are interested in this type of work, who may not even know it exists, right?
Right.
Most people don't. Now, I was on the education committee years ago. We did the Cool Careers in Metrology. It's still out there, I think, in the universe of the internet. The idea of that was to give it to guidance counselors in high schools and colleges
Oh,
to make
nice.
students aware this exists, right? Here's a career field you may not know about. The way I found about it, metrology, was through taking the ASVAB for the Air Force,
Right.
and then scoring high in electronics, and this was one of the career fields they put in front of me, and I'm going, I don't know what that is, but it's in Colorado, let me go.
And
Right.
It's 52 weeks.
Yeah, and it was a
training.
long school, which
Yeah.
I was told was a good thing.
Right.
But in any case, trying to make people aware of it, that's key.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing a great job of that in the metrology industry. We're not really getting the megaphone out and making sure people can hear us.
Yeah. And one of the things that I I catch TikTok every once in a while, and you'll have there's one in particular I saved because I want to somehow utilize it in the social media space. But basically, it was a guy saying talk about the trades, and his daughter isn't going to want to go be a plumber and things like that. And I think people are missing this vital trade that you can choose to be in a nice clean lab that's air conditioned all the time and very chill.
Not in the harsh weather,
Right.
doing your job, which is fine if that's what you love, but
Sure.
that wears on you after many years.
I've professed my love for field service because it's something different every single day. I love going on site. But
What's funny is that this profession, it literally affects every aspect of our lives. Everything from the minute you get up, the food you eat, a gallon of milk, it's got to be a gallon. You drive your car, a gallon of gas. You eat a candy bar, 14 ounces in a candy bar. Everything you do. How far do I drive? I'm getting 25 miles in a gallon of car.
Come on,
for
give some
gas.
love to the leader.
No, I'm serious. Everything we do is got a measurement to it.
It does.
And so we should teach kids that. Everything you do is measurement, how important that is to
Right.
understand that. So you brought up a few minutes ago about, how can we bring that to the high school level?
Right.
There should be somewhere that a major conference can maybe reproduce another tape or something, but I think it has to be more hands-on, where we go back to the schools and we say, okay, I'm going to go to a school tomorrow and I'm going to talk about at an hour-long seminar, what is measurement?
Yeah.
We used to do that. 20
Yeah.
years ago, I went to a high school class when my kid was in high school in 9th grade, and I spoke in an auditorium on measurement.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they do that or not anymore, but
Well,
that's
I
what needs
did
to happen.
one where
did you?
where I went to a middle school and I took a ruler calibrator, one of those that's a really portable one.
Yeah.
And we tested like the teacher's ruler and stuff. They loved that.
Yeah, exactly. What grade was that?
If you can seal it and
Ninth
see it and
or
feel
eighth.
it.
Eighth grade,
Something-
yeah. So
something right
I think
there.
it should be at the high school level, so because that's when
Probably.
they're starting to think.
Yeah, yeah.
So a shout out to Elizabeth Benham, who with NIST,
With
who
NIST,
has
yeah,
really
education.
done a great job with education in STEM for reaching out to schools and students, guidance counselors, pushing that. She's done a lot of work in that, and I don't know if she's still doing a lot of work, and that's still not getting out enough. Right?
Yeah.
That we need to do more. Right.
Right.
To
We
your
need-
point, you need the Super Bowl ad.
Transcat, come on, Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
Like something really like jets,
Like something sexy.
explosions.
I'm
Tom Cruise,
Transcat.
can you get Tom Cruise?
Transcat, I want to make your measurements.
The best I can do this weekend, I was visiting my sister in San Diego. We had a private charter that took us out underneath the USS Midway, right there in
Nice,
San
yeah.
Diego Bay. And as we pull around, right, he's making sure he can clear the decks and all that. And he pulls back around and then he blasts the theme song to Top Gun and takes off, right?
Nice.
That was fun. That was exciting.
Nice.
We need to do something like that,
Right.
Yeah, right.
right?
All right. So we will all agree that we're going to go back and think about this. We'll figure something out.
Well, you guys have to do it because I'm technically retired. So
Oh, you're quitting on us.
yeah, I've done my 45 years. I'm ready to move on.
All right. We'll allow
Wait,
that.
we still have like 5 or 6 seasons of podcast to record. You
Oh
can't quit
shoot!
now.
I thought I could retire.
We have a lot of people to talk to.
Well, no, now that's just a hobby.
I like that.
There you go.
I'm a hobby. I can just do it part time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that.
Now, are you guys, because we do shorter segments here at the live, do you guys have anything you're promoting specifically this time, or are you just coming as normal support as you usually do, other than the Woodington?
Well, I would like to promote the fact that we have an upcoming webinar ourselves for NEPT, and it's going to be for our members. We've done a lot of software upgrades, and we have 2 new modules we're going to give to our members and to the community at large for free. Risk analysis is one that we're going to start offering to anyone who wants to do it with the PT planning. It's a free tool that we offer to anybody. You can even use our competition as your provider and still use our tools.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we're going to offer that, but we're going to have an introduction webinar on the 21st of May. So go to our website, sign up for it.
The day after World Metrology Day. Mind
That's
you,
right.
150th anniversary. I do want to have a
Yep.
mention.
I
of
was
that.
trying to do a public event. I'm hoping I can still do it.
Oh, nice.
But
Okay.
it gets tricky with the logistics, and getting the exact date. But
For release date? Yeah.
well, no, it would be a in-person training event. But we're probably running out of time on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to promote. What do you want to promote?
General safety and well-being.
Oh, God. He's always such a cynic.
And see, this is why the podcast works. See?
I'm looking for a new partner. I'll
Whoa.
take recommendations
fired.
We can have tryouts.
Is this
here.
the end of Howie on the Chatterbots?
The
Yeah,
chatterbots are no more.
Yeah,
it's
we're-
just chatter.
Just chatter with
With Chuck.
I
Lonely
Chuck chatter.
well, I don't think anyone can come to the podcast anymore because you're the draw.
Oh, I am.
Yeah,
And you're firing me?
No, well, I might as well shut the
Cutting his
podcast down.
losses.
It's
then.
an ensemble. There is no coming for one or the other. That's the whole point.
Well,
You're both valuable.
I would miss him a whole lot, let me tell
Okay.
you.
In your editing, I'd like you to put a circle around me with "open to work."
Oh
I'm getting
yeah,
fired
those-
from this podcast.
Yeah,
of ours.
open. Hey, I mean,
Maybe he could replace Henry.
Open to
yeah,
chat.
maybe Henry would have a three-person team.
We could swap. I'll take Henry, you take Howard.
Oh my goodness! Now we're getting dangerous. That would be interesting. Having how well do you banter with Henry?
I love Henry.
Henry's great.
I think Henry is probably more knowledgeable than Howard and I put together.
I'm just going to say we're going to have fun. More fun than them.
Oh, hands down. I mean, come on, these guys, him and Henry, come on.
Dropping the gauntlet.
All the fun is over here.
That's right.
Yeah, well, Henry and I have a different sense of humor, that's for sure. That would be, people would have to know us to get our sense of humor.
Do you remember? I think it was a show a year or two ago where his booth ended up being right below a green light,
No.
and so he was in this green, almost like it was meant to be. I was like, "Did you do
Wow.
this on purpose?" And it was just this green overhead light that was in the facility that was right over Morehouse. I was like, "That's like a star from
That is so
Wow.
cool.
Force Heaven."
Yeah,
I
wow.
guess I missed that.
Yeah, it was weird. I might have a picture because it was just so odd. And it's
Yeah.
like you had to have planned that, but I guess not.
No. So he's great. So no, but for planning future, we got like Howard was mentioning, we got literally 6 seasons that we went through and we created a list of who we would like to interview, and of course between those interviews we're going to throw in him and I are bantering, but there's just so many people that are good people out there that we want to interview, that we wanted to have that personal touch and
Yeah.
get people introduced to metrology.
Well, in your Rolodex combined, I mean, a lot of options.
That's where it came from, right?
Yeah.
So the list was larger than that, but we whittled it down to 6 seasons worth of guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And
How many in each season?
12.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of episodes. You guys are going to hate podcasting after that. I spread it out over 4 seasons in 4 years.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's probably smart.
But
Because
you're an old pro at this now.
I'd like to think so, but then the Zoom thing happens, and
I love that we ended up using the same equipment, right? I didn't know what you were using, and this is what I ended up buying.
yeah, this is my oldest mic right here. This is the first, what you'll call an expensive mic.
Yes.
Well, no, Ryan gave us advice when we did his podcast. When we did your podcast 4 or 5 months ago, you gave us advice. Remember, you sent us an email of what to use.
Did I?
Yeah.
I don't remember yesterday.
But you
hardly.
remember, independently, I went through another guy I know that's connected to a guy from Guitar Center out here in California.
Right.
And this is what he recommended without knowing any of that.
That's right. It was.
Oh.
Yep. It was the same
So
guy.
it tied right
Well, yeah,
back
the
into it.
podcast, the Roadcaster is just too easy.
Yeah.
But the video element is the more.
Well, we don't do that. We don't have that yet.
Well, I actually did buy a camera. I didn't tell you about that.
No, you
Nice.
did not. I haven't seen that expensive.
And I have a stand for it and everything.
Thanks for the donation.
I just haven't broken it out yet to get to know.
I just don't like webcams. Like some of them are good webcams, but they don't give the adjustability that because I record. You guys has obviously done the podcast with me where I'm sitting in my office.
Right, yep.
I do a lot of educational material from there as well. So
Yes.
having something with a little bit more adjustment is what I need. Where the webcams, those can get very difficult to just like brightness and
Right. Yeah.
color hue and whatever and stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
No, you've got a great setup. I love your setup.
It's been built over years.
Yeah. It's fabulous.
I
Now, I
added
don't have a
these
diffuser
after.
like that, so I may have to get that.
That is key.
It is.
Because then if you don't put a diffuser on with my face, I look like a gargoyle.
You get all that shine.
Oh, direct
reflection.
harsh light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look like a villain from a horror, an old Vincent Price horror or something.
Right.
I ended up getting these though because were you guys out there when we did the metrology on tap?
I didn't see your setup there.
Well, there we had tabletop ones and people had to kind of
Oh.
like lean into
yeah,
them. This
right.
makes it where we can kind of just relax.
Yeah.
Right.
How many lawsuits did you get back from having hunchback from trying to reach that microphone?
How many losses?
Lawsuits.
Lawsuits.
Oh, lawsuits.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't talk about them.
No.
That was an interesting broadcast anyway, because they had things going off all the time, from the brewery,
Oh,
like psh,
yeah.
psh. So a little bit
Not how
distracting.
You were live at that one too?
Yeah,
Okay. I didn't.
that was the first live one. This is the first one that's an actual setup and
Okay.
permanent thing. So hopefully, obviously, we were able to pull this off. So next year we're planning on doing hopefully a little bit of a game as well. Like there can be teams, like
I'm
a
all about
Transcat
that.
team.
I'm all about that. I think that'll be a lot of fun.
So Transcat builds a team, and if you guys win, then you win the metrology games or something like that.
Oh,
That's
nice, cool.
Yeah. We're just trying to come up with what are those games, right? Because obviously trivia, that's an obvious. What are the other games? You know, Ginger, you guys know Ginger, right?
Yeah,
Hazard.
Ginger
She
Hazard.
mentioned Dizzy Izzy calibrations.
Oh, I can
Could
already
you
picture
imagine
what
with
that
this
would
crew?
be. And that's without alcohol.
Right. Just well, when was the last time I spun around? You know, so you spin around and do like a micrometer or something.
Yeah, that could backfire on you.
Oh, real quick. There's a lot of liability there, but it's hilarious nonetheless.
I don't think I can participate. I'm already dizzy.
Yeah, it's a padded room.
Yeah.
We could do a padded room.
Yeah. We'll have to, so.
Well,
Combine
gentlemen,
that with a what are those things? Escape room, right? Combine the padded room
That
with
was
an
one-
escape room. That might be fun too.
that was a suggestion that was put out there. A metrology escape room is actually fairly easy to do in one of the
yes,
classrooms.
that'd be fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any suggestions any of you listeners have, email us, please. Information at signcalibration.com or something. Or support that either or. Because any ideas for the metrology games would be fun. Something that bring viewers as well, you know, if you get to watch everyone compete a little bit.
It's got to be sexy.
Well, obviously there is a bikini competition.
Metrology twister.
Oh,
Okay, maybe that's a little
love
too
it.
far.
I don't know. Mix the two, bikini competition with Twister.
Okay.
You know, I will tell you before we go. Years ago, they say that sex sells, and it's no doubt about it. Back when I was a Cal Lab manager, we were at a trade show, and my wife at the time was friends with Miss Minnesota, and so we had Miss Minnesota come into the booth, and we had a putting green, and it was test your skill against Miss Minnesota. We had them 10 deep, trying to teach Miss Minnesota how to putt.
Oh.
I'm not kidding you. It was unbelievable. And of course, she had the gown on and the whole Miss Minnesota strap. But sex sells, and so no doubt about it.
Well, now that we have
Interesting.
men and women more now in metrology, you're going to have a Mr. Minnesota as well.
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Minnesota.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, like side-by-side little putting things.
Yeah. So, but that's what we got to do. Unfortunately, we got to figure out a way to get more people involved.
For real, yeah.
And it's a great business. I mean, you can make a really good living. I think that's what people don't realize. You can make a really good living being a metrologist.
Right. Yeah, a lot of upward. And I always use the example, because there's a place I used to support in Utah called Edwards Life Science. You can get into the metrology department without a degree, whereas anything else in that building is a degree.
Oh, yeah.
And then in that building, once you're hired, they help with your schooling and
Sure,
stuff like
yeah.
that. So I tell my kids stuff like that, like if you're not ready for school right now, go work at places like this.
Yeah.
And you know,
Absolutely.
it's because you can, and I also like the exposure to different industries, because
Yeah.
Cal, you touch everything.
Well, I'm a proponent of education while you're working.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
not saying everybody should do that, but there's a benefit to it, right? Because you're learning things in school, you're applying them at work or seeing how they apply to the real world. It tends to help you absorb it and retain it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if there's anything we can do to help you with training, you know we'd love to help you out.
Well, I there's a lot of things that I want to partner with NAPT on down the road
Yeah.
for sure. So more to come on those things for sure.
Yeah, we got lots of announcements that we're going to do that this year. By the way, we've got our first site, so I can share that with you off the line.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Yeah. So we're going to do something this year in South Carolina.
Okay. I that's the hard thing with me. I'm booked till November now.
Oh,
my.
God, Ryan.
But we have there's little windows here and there. We'll figure it out.
I hope so. Okay.
Well, gentlemen, thank you coming on again once again.
Always
I
a
look
pleasure.
forward to watching my episode with you guys. It should be interesting to.
It'll be about 16 weeks, so we'll get your episode out.
Perfect. Love it. Well, gentlemen, have a great conference.
Thank you.
and
Thank
safe
you.
travels home.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Thanks for setting this up. I love this.
Yeah, this is great.
Hopefully, we'll be back next year.
All right.
Perfect.
All right.
Take care.
You enjoying the music?
Was feeling it.
All right, so there you're up. Can you hear yourself?
I think so, yeah.
All right, we are good. Sorry, I can't. Here, get on the mic. What'd you say?
You want me to jump in on this, or you?
Oh, either way. If you have any questions.
I actually talked to him for a while over there.
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Well, Michael, welcome back.
Thank you.
You are. I'm trying to remember what season you were on of ours. Was it? It was like a couple seasons ago.
I think it was, yeah. And in fact, I was just thinking when I went back and listened to it after the fact, it was such a weird experience. I found myself just like completely zoning out and then trying to respond to things that Mike Brown was saying. As I was listening, I'm like, wait, no, this is not live. I'm not in this right now.
That is hilarious. Well, for those that haven't seen that episode, can you introduce yourself?
Sure.
And then, what is Fluke?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Johnston. I'm the software portfolio product manager for Fluke, which is a measurement science company that's been around for just over 75 years now. Kind of one of the big names in the industry, heavily focused on electrical, temperature, pressure, flow, and from my side of things, the software, trying to address a little bit of everything.
You can see Fluke in Iron Man, and I mean anything that is showing someone working with a multimeter. It's usually something yellow. And
it's one of my favorite things to see if I can identify what exact model it is.
Oh, I was gonna say I do it all the time. I'm looking and I'll catch like sometimes very rarely they'll have a documenting process calibrator. I'm like, whoa, that is so rare.
I feel like I see a lot of scope meters. Those tend to be a popular one.
Yeah, scope meters. Yeah, because they've got that good visual to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, obviously, the last time you were on, we talked about software.
Yeah.
Is that still one of your main focuses?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So how's that stuff going?
Really well. And in fact, at the show, we're kind of previewing our next big thing with Cal Studio, which is more than just a shirt logo.
Nice.
So it's really along the same lines of what we were talking about before, and kind of taking that next step.
Right.
And it's a journey that's kind of been in progress for the last decade, really, for us, and having kind of iterations of this and really growing it to where it is now, to the point where we're launching this really holistic approach, I think, to calibration software and addressing everything in very much the same way. And so that takes a lot of building blocks to get there and to figure out, how to approach that meaningfully. But we're really excited to be launching it later this year, and so we wanted to make sure that as soon as was feasibly possible on our end, we wanted to start getting stuff out there. And
so this is something created from like code line one.
Yeah. We I think actual development on the current code base started very tail end of last year.
Wow.
So
because I know you mentioned previously, and I do a little bit of programming in something called Unreal Engine. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's for video games, but you learn very quickly in programming that something called spaghetti code can happen very quickly.
Yeah.
And so something as old as Metcal and been through revisions for decades, that becomes very spaghetti-like, right?
It definitely. And especially with when you approach something like Metcal, where part of its core concept is really that we're never going to get rid of anything we've done, right? I have to continue to support. And we have some customer somewhere, and I don't know who it is, but they will take a procedure they wrote in version 1 and run it every time we do a new launch to make sure that everything that was in there still works.
Sounds like military.
It really does, yeah.
Or government.
And so there's this expectation, right, that we're going to continue to support that the way that we always have. And that's very much a limitation in terms of what we can do, but it's for that consistency, and it's a big selling point for it that it does do that. So with having that kind of fresh start, very much is a nice thing to have as a change.
Remove the shackles a little bit.
Yeah.
It sounds like a daunting task, though, and I know what you're saying, because there's customers I go to that are still running, and I'm sure you've heard this, like Windows 98 and X, or I don't know if XP is one of the popular ones.
XP was very popular.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That seemed, but because they either don't want to change.
Yeah. They just updated me to Windows 11 at work, and I'm not happy about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was just nothing major, right? But those little things that I had in place that are now just gone.
Yeah.
I have to redo those. It changes. We often talk about, especially with calibration software at this level, right? It's a skeletal transplant because it's touching really everything.
Wow, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
The other thing about it, I don't remember where I was going with that.
Well, no, but I mean, when you have that reiteration over and over again, it is going to naturally get out of control.
Exactly.
So starting from scratch, I can understand why, that is something that is probably exciting, but then also, are you saying it's releasing or it is released?
It will release later this year. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure that's going to be nerve-wracking.
Yeah, and I think that that was the other thing I was going to bring up is, so often with software we look at a specific case and we build to that case and then we expand from there. But over the years, what that's meant for calibration software is that we end up painting ourselves into very discipline-specific corners that we then can't get out of. And so that's the other opportunity we have here is leveraging, years of experience in metrology and the things that, Mike Brown has done with the universal measurement model. He's presented a few times where that's really the core of this, where we are addressing this in the same way for every discipline, right? It's not, a unique solution for pressure and a unique solution for temperature. It's all the same in the end. And so building software with that same concept in mind so that from the beginning, we address everything the same way.
Now, I had a question for you because, this is a right down your alley, I'm hoping. So we're running some betas and things like that with, I got an alarm going off. I have some betas and things running with blockchain.
Yeah.
To where, like the training records and all that is kept more on blockchain than a centralized database.
Yeah.
We currently use Badger. I don't know if you're familiar with that. They go through Cornerstone.
Okay.
Or in Structure.
Yeah.
Very large company. But sometimes, if there's outages or anything like that, or connection issues, you're dealing with one company instead of blockchain.
Right, yeah.
Is that something that you guys have been looking at all for equipment tracking?
I think that some of this comes back really well to the effort, is, really mainly in Europe at this point
for the
around
taxonomy,
the DCC. Yeah, and having this, so much of that relies on a consistent format for a lot of this data, right? And it's interesting. I've heard a lot of other industries now outside of Cal that are basically attempting to do the same thing, and being able to trace things through development and through shipping and all of that. But in order to do that, you need to be talking the same language about what that thing is, right? And so I think it was at NCSLI, there was a presentation about, or someone was talking about, trying to track, and these economists were trying to track basically like the carbon footprint of specific materials, but they were including things like, what method of transportation was used to move this from this location to this one, and then what process did it undergo once it was there, and what did we make with that sheet of sheet metal.
Sure.
And so to do that, again, really needs that kind of definition,
definitely
industry-wide. And so we're very much seeing the same thing with metrology, and what that will allow us to do is those exact kinds of things, where once everyone's on the same page about how we talk about things and how we define things, intercomparability becomes so much easier to do, and that verification of the validity of a record becomes that much easier to do.
It's right down the line of what we're facing, because I feel like we're able to do our project and then connect as those things get figured out, but we're making our train the trainer connect with those taxonomy.
Right.
So a trainer knows, hey, to train this scope item I have, this line item on my scope, I need this competency that will then be tied to, and I can do this calibration. But then it's easy to connect that technician, just like you were saying, what truck transported this materials. If you have a technician, what technician calibrated this, what technician transported it,
exactly.
So on and so forth. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to see where the roads take us, I guess. That is a key project, though, I agree with you, because I find myself in the same situation where you have to have some of those things defined to make it where it can work in any lab anywhere.
Yeah. And I think one of the hardest things about it is when you get that many kind of big brains in a room, it becomes very difficult to reach a consensus that's meaningful.
Sure.
And so at some point, you almost have to have someone just do it
Yeah.
and then find the problems, right?
Right.
And I feel like that's where we are right now, especially with the DCC, is we're just doing it. And Fluke has started for all of the instruments that go through our primary lab. There is a DCC now available in the current format from our customer portal that, when you register a product, you can log in there and see all the CalCerts, and those include the PDF version, but also the DCC in its current format.
Very cool.
So we're now the largest, manufacturer that has, in terms of the largest volume of DCCs available from an OEM. And so that, just taking the leap, right, doing it and seeing where it falls apart is tremendously important to that.
Right. I feel in some ways that's what I'm doing with the school is because if I sat there and asked every single person in the industry, what should we teach at level 1? What should you'd get a million different answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And sometimes it's good to just get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Interesting. Have you messed around with any of the blockchain stuff?
I have not, no.
What do you think about AI with because obviously the last time we talked, AI has made a huge change.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my biggest use of AI is still for Dungeons and Dragons. That's still.
I love it.
I think my new favorite use of Copilot at work is as a product manager, I make a lot of slide decks.
Oh,
and I reuse them.
Is it good at that?
Oh, it will make them. I made one in 20 minutes the other day on a topic that I didn't want to do a bunch of research about, and it just spit it out. But the other thing that it does is I can track down a spreadsheet or a PowerPoint I already made based on just describing things that are inside of it. And I'll say, I'm looking for a PowerPoint that contains this information. It was probably made somewhere in this time frame, and it had a slide maybe that included this. And it'll track down 4 or 5 options in my library of hundreds of PowerPoints and point me in that direction.
I'm going to chat with you a little bit more about this because there's times I have to make custom slideshows for clients, and that takes up time to go back through and fix them.
Yeah. But the other thing, and we've got this at the show right now in the booth, if you haven't come to see it, you should. We have started using AI image analysis to, instead of the typical OCR technologies that we're using to capture readings like from a handheld DMM, we are actually using AI image analysis, and so it can work with any webcam. Virtually, I'm putting air quotes around that.
Maybe not the 40, 80
exactly.
one.
But any webcam, it will capture that image and capture the reading, the unit. It's able to do things like determine what type of instrument that is very easily. We've had it, capture straight off the front panel, the manufacturer model. But even with analog displays, analog gauges, right? Figuring out, capturing both scales of a dual scale thermometer, recognize that it's a thermometer because I'm measuring temperature. And so taking that functionality and then integrating it with Cal Studio, with MetCal as it exists, with Qubit, and having that available in Cal Sheets, really takes it that next level and leverages, in a different way. I think certainly generative AI has been kind of like the big thing right now, but there's so many other AI and ML tools that are out there that it's a real opportunity to kind of leverage those as well. And as we start looking at having these systems that are interconnected, it allows us to do things like analytics using AI and all of those different big data type things that I would say were really more the precursor for some of the generative stuff, but aren't as able to be used right now just because of the nature of the way the industry is set up.
Yeah, right. And you get people that are nervous about these things, but it's inevitable.
Yeah.
And you have to remember a lot of our work is, a lot of the most important things we do, you have to go into very specific areas that, like a robot, it's going to be hard to get a robot in there in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it is interesting to see these things develop and, just simple things like image generation to, we've done some extensive experimentation. Like I've mentioned Thomas Harper, who's an expert in temperature.
Yeah.
And it won't pass the metrologist test, right?
Right. Yeah.
But when we already have the material and for me to generate like a handout, it's great for that type of stuff. You know what I mean?
I would love to get to the point where I can generate connection images, like how to connect instruments together. That I think is I feel like we're really close. Yeah.
I pay just for right now because I'm in some peer reviews and some production time at the school, so we
Yeah.
paid for the more expensive GPT.
Yeah.
But down now with the image generation that just came out, I bet
Yeah.
that is getting
Yeah,
super close.
it's got to be real close, and especially like being able to kind of identify, right? And it's all about the training, and it's all about teaching your model how you want it to do. So having a library of images of instruments, having a library of, right, on that instrument, these are the different connection points. These are what those names are. So if I want to connect, this to this, now put that together with that context provided, it's a whole game changer when you're doing that type of training.
It's interesting because obviously you could generate an image knowing the setup,
Right.
But you could get to a point where it could. I'm guessing it could see what you're using and actually use the images of the things that you're using.
Right.
That's really
dynamic connection.
dynamic
setups,
connections. That is
Yeah.
tight, and with options and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So how do you feel about all of it? When we talk about AI, I know people get skittish, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So are you skittish or?
I think back my first day when I worked at Northrop, which was my job before Fluke. They had like the VP of space in there, and he was talking about what they were working on, and he was like, so of course, and they had like just completed the first autonomous in-flight refueling at the time.
Wow.
Which was a big deal.
Yeah.
and so he said something along the lines of, so of course we're working on the next logical step, which is true AI. And I sat there thinking, I'm like, nobody watched Terminator in this room, and it shows. And certainly like there's that risk that things are going to go very terribly. I would say at this point, the bigger risk is just the quality level, right? And
Right.
it's just not there. When we talk about Optical with that ability to read instruments, we refer to it kind of jokingly as metrology grade, right? There are many tools out there that will capture the lettering off of a license plate.
Sure.
Right? Things like that. But when you think about, right, it's not just about the value that we're capturing in that screenshot. It's in the exact number of digits. It's in the unit. It's in all of the context around that as a original indication that we're capturing. That I feel like as you build those tools and leverage those tools to truly build metrology grade solutions, there's too much there not to leverage it.
Right.
And I would say that,
And we all know when it comes down to money and
Yeah.
time, there are going to be
Exactly.
things like, you think of things like a digital multimeter, and there are places that they might have a 5522, 5550, or whatever, and all they do all day is like hundreds of handheld
Yeah.
multimeters. You know what I mean? So there's going to be some that it just makes total sense.
Yeah.
And no, I just don't, it's inevitable.
yeah,
You know.
it really is.
And then there's certain things that are like, you're foolish to, this is too important to have something unaware or whatever you want to call it, at least at this time, without monitoring
Yeah.
or,
And I think that's what it is, right? It's the monitoring, it's the understanding enough of the context to know when it's wrong, and recognizing that it's not there yet in a lot of cases, and knowing how to filter that.
Right.
And I think that it is as useful as the skill level of its user at this point.
Right. At the
and-
prompt creating.
Exactly. Yeah. And so as that gets easier to do, I remember my degrees in applied math and using software Mathematica. And I remember, I think it was version 7 or 8 when I was still doing undergrad, they came out with freeform text entry to tell Mathematica what you wanted to do.
Wow.
And it was this huge thing because previously you had to know like the specific syntax. I did a whole like certification of
Right.
Mathematica to show that I knew my stuff, and it was a whole thing. But now you could just like type in like, oh, I want to do this. And so like thinking back to that, right, it didn't change like the fact that I needed to understand the mathematical concepts. It was, I didn't need to care about the syntax to get there.
Yeah.
I still had to know what I wanted to get.
Right.
And so it doesn't eliminate that technical need, but it certainly amplifies the capability of the person using it.
Right.
For
Agreed.
good or bad.
Yeah, or give them false confidence at times.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I get what you're saying because that is true. Like, it. I don't. Well, how do I want to put this? Like, I get my hands on ChatGPT, and it's like wow, I have something that can help me. I'm a individual that runs a company by myself in a lot of ways, and
Right.
some of those things, it's like, wow, this is really helpful.
Yeah.
And this is things that can make my life easier, answering certain emails and whatever. So then you start to extrapolate that out, like what would be those convenience things that AI could do for me? Imagine you're sitting there taking measurements and you're like just saying your measurements and it's taking them, and it's like, are you sure about that measurement? You said this, but that's way off from the last one, and you can like, oh, I misspoke,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it should be interesting, because I know I could go interview a ton of technicians right now, and things like data input and
Yep.
things like that, things that are real close to your heart,
Yeah, yeah.
are going to be top of the list, because
Exactly.
we want to do Cal,
Yeah.
not necessarily the documentation.
Yeah, we found some studies that said that the like error rate of someone entering data was about 3 to 5%.
Oh, really? Okay.
And when you look at what we're doing with OptiCal, one of the biggest use cases we found for it is doing like a micrometer, right? You've got your gloves on, you've got your gauge blocks, you're holding it there. And now I have to take the measurement, set it down, take my gloves off, type in the number, right? Or I can just do a voice action capture, is one of the ones we've set up on OptiCal
Oh, yeah.
in the booth, and it will just take the reading with an overhead camera and fill it in for you, right?
That's
and now I'm
amazing.
on to my next measurement point. It's like those little things, right? It's not a huge time savings. And I think that so much of calibration we focus on the active calibration, which admittedly this is, but there's so much of it that is outside of when we're actually doing that, that we don't always focus enough of our effort there in terms of optimization, in terms of improvement.
How many times an amended certificate is because of a clerical error?
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very obvious.
Yeah.
So we obviously this format, we're doing a little bit shorter interviews. I could talk to you all day. I did want to talk about some of the other things that you guys are promoting here. Obviously, you're a gold sponsor at Fluke, so that's awesome. I love anyone that helps support the conferences. You've been coming to the conferences for quite a while.
Yeah. I lived down here when I was working for Northrop, so I was here as a customer for a couple of years. And there was the show when I had already known that Fluke was going to hire me, but I wasn't a Fluke employee yet. It was maybe the most awkward experience I've ever had. I think I did a presentation, and like my new boss and a bunch of the people I was going to be working with were there, and it went really poorly. I lasted like 15 minutes of a 55-minute block. I'm like, this is not going to go well. This is rough, but
Everything went fine.
Yeah, it was fine. I'm still here, so because it went all right.
Well, today, so you guys are also, Cal Studio is something you definitely wanted to promote. They added a null meter function to the 8588.
Yeah. This is
This is something that I have customers that have asked me about that previously and then it being added, I know there's a bunch of people happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, you think about like the technology we've been using for null detectors still after all these years,
Yeah,
right?
from the 70s.
It's an analog meter that just sits there and wiggles back and forth. Like, it's crazy to me that like this is where we're at, but it's where we're at, right? I mean, it's the same reason we still sell the 728 divider. There's just nothing better than it, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, the 8588, I joke that it's like the 3458 and the 8508 had a love child that was better at everything than both of them. It is maybe my favorite product that we've launched hardware-wise in the last several years. It is just an amazing tool to use. Just so fun coming from other meters and like knowing all the things going on there. I had a chance to go to some training when they launched it from the tech support perspective and hear like, all of the hardware design decisions that went into that and just the like tremendous level of innovation that's going on there. And so then to see, because I remember early on, right, there were questions, well, why couldn't we use it as a null detector? And it was like, oh, maybe that's a good idea. And so now like seeing that come to fruition where, there's hardware changes for it and some firmware changes, but seeing just that small little thing that, I mean, being in the booth and having people walk up and see it live has been fantastic. Like just the response for such a simple change that customers are asking for and being able to respond to that is really fulfilling, right? As a
I don't
company.
know if you can answer this, but can you tell me when it comes down to, like, say, hey, we're going to make a brand new calibrator, and it's like we've had this very popular 5522 for years. Now we're going to make a new one. what is that? Is there a room that like Jeff Gust is in there and
Yeah,
like
no,
these
we
people
we
and they
all
all
kind
sit
of
there?
yeah,
and
we sit around this table and we're like, what should we make next? No,
do you start putting like Eye of Newt in and like fire, like purple fire comes
yeah,
up? And it's
exactly. Yeah, it's like you've got a camera in there, man. We, the process has changed over the years, certainly, and we've been going through it with the software now too, and so like, kind of learning as a company how to take this process with a software product where we're not worrying about how we're going to build it in the factory. It's like
Right.
we're just going to write the code. Like let's see what happens. There's a lot of ideation and kind of validating the problems that are there that we want to solve. The 5560 and the other models in that series, it was probably a 10-year project where we knew we wanted to do this thing, but then in order to do that, we had to do 3 other projects in order to support that, right? So like things like the 5730A, the 5790B, like those were all to set us up, and 8588 as well, were all to set us up to be able to do the 5560.
Yeah.
And so there's
That makes
kind of
sense.
this long, this long roadmap ahead of us of to do this, like this is where we're going. How do we get there? Okay, what are the steps along the way to get to that path? And then building out that kind of roadmap to get there. So lots of back and forth, lots of discussion, and then confirming that where we're going along the way is still where we want to get.
So does like I guess a prototype comes out and everyone kind of gathers around?
Yeah,
and-
there's we're certainly pushing more and more toward prototyping and like having that feedback on something real, right? We've found actually some really good AI tools for that.
Oh,
in terms
cool.
of making digital prototypes of an instrument.
Oh, yeah,
to get that kind of feedback, but also just making things, right? It's hard to beat that kind of approach.
I mean, for a simulation game for Cal, we've done some experiments with that stuff. I've from a programming, and are you familiar with Unreal, where it's the block programming?
Yeah.
So I've done that where I'm like, okay, I'm going to make the logic behind this calibrator, and a guy walks up to it, and then what happens, right?
Yeah.
And you start to break that stuff down, and I couldn't imagine creating a real one.
Yeah.
And like, you said something very key. You have to remember we're manufacturing this, so like how it's laid out, the materials, because I know they changed from. Like on the high voltage, changed the ways that you actually do that.
Yeah.
And I had both, by the way. So we were very thankful for Fluke. They sent us the 5560 and the 8588 to update our school for the new stuff. And I'll agree with you because I am a decades user of the 3458.
Yeah.
And just not having to know the secret functions is very
Yeah.
helpful,
Yeah, I have an uncle who works for Keysight, and we give each other a hard time. But that was one that I just
That 3458 though, who was the original designer? HP. I mean, what a work of engineering. Though. Like
to
that thing
still
is,
be around for that long,
and
right?
still like
tremendous.
you can buy them and
yeah.
crazy. But so that's exciting. So that's a software update, right?
It's software and hardware.
Okay.
So it'll be available soon. This is actually like this is days old.
Right. The
that's being
announcement
done.
was here. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it'll be available as an upgrade to existing units, and also all of the new units will have this enabled coming out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know quite a few people that are. I have them on the top of my head that are like, because part of their whole process is having a null meter to do
Yeah.
that. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thinking back to teaching the Metrology 101 courses at Fluke, right? And, or it was probably more the 301 course for null detectors. But having that, like looking back at that and, having those old analogs still there.
Yeah.
We're sitting at Northrop in our, standards area, still using that same meter.
Wild.
Yeah.
Do they even make the parts anymore?
I don't think they do, no.
I know I've talked with Jeff Gus before. Like we were talking about old equipment, and there were certain ones that we were talking about our favorites. And there was one I wish I could ask him. There was one that like there were certain resistors that they just couldn't source anymore.
Yeah.
And it changed the whole model. They had to change the whole model.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping tomorrow we'll also get to stop by Fluke's booth as long as our remote. I have a remote camera now.
Oh, nice.
And a remote mic.
Fancy.
So we're hoping possibly tomorrow we'll be able to stop by the booth. Is there anything else that you want to mention Fluke-wise?
I'm happy to show everybody what we got right now set up for Cal Studio and OptiCal, especially. I've got a camera there set up to actually show it working live and capture
Nice.
measurements.
So maybe we'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, so really fun to see that live.
You said here?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, it's
perfect.
over in our booth. I think that's it.
Awesome.
I'm sure they'll beat me up when I get back there because I forgot to mention something.
Well, you guys,
tremendous.
Gold sponsor gets a couple chances to come on. So
Yeah.
if they mention something to you, you'll remember next
All
time.
right, perfect.
But I appreciate you coming on as always. Look forward to finding out more. I might poke around in Cal Studio sometime. I have some ideas education wise.
Okay.
I obviously don't have an operational use for
Yeah.
it, but I have some educational ideas. We'll touch base.
Absolutely.
with.
Happy to hear the
But
feedback.
but I hope to have you back on again down the road as some of this gets further, and we'll talk
Yeah.
about how it's going.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Oh, let's get you pulled up. You able to hear me?
Yes,
And I can hear you. Can you hear yourself?
I can.
Walter, welcome back to the podcast. You were on at least some of the people coming on that have been on the podcast before. It's been years. You were last year, right?
Yes, probably in October, November timeframe, I'm thinking.
Oh yeah, even soon. So like towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was just seeing it on during lunch. They're playing some of
Oh,
my
were they?
playlist, and you were on there, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
"Where's Walter? I should show him."
No kidding.
Yeah, you're famous here. So how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. This is a pretty active conference.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
How was your trip down here?
Smooth. Very smooth.
The where you're from? You're over in. Are you in Maryland?
I'm in Minnesota.
I knew it was with an M.
Yeah.
Something like that.
There you go.
Now, Minnesota, and I didn't realize until recently with, and we don't want to get too much into politics but with everything that is going on out there, Minnesota and Wisconsin, huge GDPs in the United States.
Yes.
I didn't realize it until like a year ago I started doing helping more clients out there.
Right.
A lot of business up in that area.
Yeah, the Twin Cities is kind of called the Silicon Valley for biomedical.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of biomedical companies and other Fortune 500 companies are there, like 3M.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, and that's somewhat of your expertise, right? The biomedical
That's right.
realm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. So how are things going over at IndieSoft?
Good. we got a lot of things in the pipeline. Very excited about that. We've got some good stuff to be coming out.
When you've been doing a lot of those, I really like the idea of the management training that you and Greg put on.
Yeah.
Because I think we've talked about this before, where there's a lot of situations that we're losing technicians due to poor management, and some of those things, I think, we're military. We're
Right.
like, we can train this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, don't you still agree on that?
I do.
How are you feeling as you're going out there? Because now at this point, you've done some more of these. How have they been going?
They've been going really good. In fact, we got one scheduled next month
At ESCO.
up at ESCO in Boston. So we're going to do the 2-day lab manager class, and then on the next day after that, they're going to have their local NCSLI meeting.
Oh, nice.
At Vicela's headquarters there. So pretty sweet.
Yeah, Visala is, if you do anything humidity,
Yeah.
obviously temperature as well, but humidity is where
I really am
think of-
impressed with their website. They've got a ton of technical white papers, so well written.
Oh, let's take a note of that.
It is nice. So if there's any training you need to do or supplement on humidity, they're the experts. And that's where you can push people to get resources.
Excellent. Oh, good to know. All right. Well, that's who is watching, are people that want to know resources, so now they can hear it.
There we go.
But are you seeing good reception to the management training, or I guess I'm curious what the attitude is going into it from those groups. Do they feel like, because obviously they're going to the training, but are they going to the training also agreeing that they need the training? Does that make sense?
Sure, I think so. Yeah, I think so. The ones who get the most benefit, and they're the target of the training, is fairly new managers or supervisors to that role.
That's a good point.
That's the target. We've had some people attend the class that were like directors, and then that's they feel like they didn't get as good as value out of it, but that's not the target audience.
Sure.
Right. They've been there, done that, and so we're not really giving them anything new necessarily. So it's the fairly inexperienced or new supervisors, managers.
Remind me, what is the title of your portion?
It's lab management, how to run an effective lab.
Effective. That's what. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I knew it. I specifically wanted to remember the title because I like that word of effective. It's similar to, I was talking to Ginger earlier. Ginger Hazard, and because she likes to focus a lot on those type of things, and I think that.
Sure.
She's one that I want to bring into, if we could ever do like a manager's symposium or something
Yeah.
like that. Because, it feels like conferences and all that stuff are great. And then we also need targeted things, because I don't know if the conference can handle all the needs at once.
Right.
I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I was inspired by Jesse Morris, who years ago did a lab manager class, which I was fortunate enough to attend early in my Medtronic career. Got so much out of that. And then when that stopped and there wasn't anything else that filled it up, that kind of gave me the inspiration to say, let's give this a try and try to fill that vacuum.
Yeah.
And the feedback we're getting is pretty good. We just need to get a little bit more enrollment.
Yeah.
Touch more of an audience.
It is one of those things. I try and spread the word for you.
Oh,
and
I'm sure you
Greg.
do. Thanks.
Yeah, because I never am. I don't think anyone has ever heard me say you have to have all training from Ryan and from Sign. I am one of the proponents that you need a variety, and you need many different trainers over time.
That's correct. Many different medias as well.
Right. What are some of your favorite? Because I know currently most people are really receptive to the video, and then having a trainer kind of introduce them. I also have some students that they want the written resource.
Okay.
They'll listen to me.
Yeah.
They'll listen, but they also want to read it,
Sure.
kind of hold it, and things like that. You know?
Yeah, I do. That's the idea of a variety of ways to get the material. Ones that we used at Medtronic early on was workplace trainings, online courses.
Right.
And it just so happened they were headquarters in Minnesota. So it was a nice connection that we got. And we used that within the lab as part of our curriculum for our technicians. We kind of made a goal that they had to take 2 a year,
Okay.
which is pretty
That's
achievable, right?
easy. Yeah.
One that they could pick from the list, because we had purchased all access to the 20 plus, and then one that the department staff selected that was the department needed to take.
Sure.
So, and that worked out very well for many years.
Nice. How do you feel about as far as like a brand new person coming in, and or let's not even limit it to that. Any employee, how do you feel about evaluations? I know those can obviously people get anxiety and get upset about it and things like that. But how do we really know where someone stands if we don't have a way of practically assessing that?
Right, and typically your large companies have already dictated how to do that.
What are some of the I might not be familiar. What are some of the ways that you've seen that people dictate? Is it tests, like just straight up testing?
It's having the managers have a discussion one-on-one at the beginning of the year to define what the objectives are, and then having in the middle of the year a touch point.
Yeah.
And the system allows for the employee to put into the system what have they achieved to the defined objective, and then that's reviewed at the checkpoint, and then at the end of the year is it gets updated, and then that's the result of the communication. What did you do? What do we need to do again next year? And then we'll set up a compensation discussion as well.
Of course.
Of course.
Well, that's always important.
That's always important. What is I have seen the ones that did not work as well was the ones where the company tried to force a kind of distribution, an expectation that managers could only give certain amount of high performance, and then that really starts demoralizing. I think it ends up demoralizing more people than it motivates.
Right.
So I think most companies have learned to stay away from those. And yeah.
I think a lot of what you're mentioning there, and I take it from the Marine Corps roots, right, of mentoring.
Yes.
But so we started a new train. I don't know if I mentioned this yet. We started a new Train the Trainer last year. It was in beta. So we were very clear that this was a in progress, but we wanted feedback.
Right.
And going into that, if you look at any manager that's sitting there trying to set up a training program, darn it, I lost my place. The mentorship. If it's a brand new technician to metrology as a whole, maybe that follow-up should be monthly. Maybe it should be
That's
quarterly,
right. Yeah.
And then you got that guy that's been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
Every half year, like,
right.
How we doing?
You're right. You're right about that. You should not manage all people the same way. So I think you bring up a perfect example. I know in our graduate course, college, they had a nice situational grid. They call it the situational leadership grid.
Oh.
It was a 4-grid matrix where you are leading people a different way based on their journey of experience and accomplishment. So you're going to checkpoint more often with the new ones and allow more empowerment to the ones who've been doing it for a while and have proven themselves.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a situational alignment that works best.
Do you see? So when you're with these classes that you have come through with management, are these people managing directly, like working technicians?
Yes, for the most part.
Okay, so
it works out very well.
Are a lot of these places just and this is obviously just anecdotal and your own experience, but are they coming in with well-defined training programs really, as far as, hey, everybody is going to have different training needs? So let me explain a little further. The problem I'm seeing is, like, I'll go to a lab and they'll have a training program, but the training program is the training program for everybody. Like, this month, this is what we're training on. It's like, okay, do you have this need from everybody? It's like, well, we know these 3 guys need it. It's like, okay. Well, then can't those three get it? And, I don't know. I now that I'm getting deeper into how people actually train, right? Because obviously the first couple of years of starting Sign is, what is the program? What do we want to offer? How are we going to improve upon this? Now we're trying to help trainers be better trainers. How do we set up the program? Because we can only do so much from distance, right? And then you start getting into that nitty gritty, and the training programs are not training programs. Yes, they're documented. Yes, there is training sometimes happening, but it's in some ways nonsensical.
Sure. We kind of did something unique at Medtronic. They had, when I got into as the manager, they had a solid on-the-job training matrix for technicians. But that stopped there. They did not have one for any other positions within the department.
Wow.
So I made it a goal that over a 3-year period, we were going to have on-the-job matrices for every position in the department, including me as a department manager.
Nice, yeah.
So that's where I started, to show an example of how this would look. And those training matrices have multiple purposes. Of course, one of them is to give a roadmap for the people who are currently doing that role.
Right.
But the other purpose is training a new person that comes in if that person has left. So now you got a roadmap to show the new person getting the role. This is what we're going to sit down and what you need to ultimately have. And so let's prioritize what you need to do in the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Based upon it's already there.
I like that.
So that's nice. And the other benefit is for those who aspire to work in a different position. Maybe it's a horizontal move or an up. They see an example of what already it takes and to work on. For example, I had my manager matrix that was for me.
Yeah.
But it was also for any one of my staff who desired to be a department manager at some point.
Sure.
And so I had one person who wanted to aspire to be that. And I said, well, let's work on training you on some of the things we can already map out.
Nice, yeah.
And we did that. Well, then he was able to apply for a manager position in a different part of the company. And he was able, when the question came up, well, you haven't been a manager, so what do you know? And he was able to pull out this on-the-job training metrics of 6 pages and go, I've been signed off on how to do capital planning. I've been signed off on how to do job positions, salary discussions. And he got the job. That probably wasn't solely, obviously, it wasn't solely based on that. But he was able to answer the natural question because he hadn't been a manager before, but it lowered the risk from the hiring manager's perspective to go, well, this person may not have been a manager, but
he has a lot of the tools. I like that a lot because, as we're developing those plans or matrices, I like that term.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and we define it. So I'm just purely speaking to what we're teaching. We define them as roles, right?
Yeah.
Every lab is going to be different, but if you can break it down to a role, one role might include, hey, these things in the dimensional lab, these things in temperature, these things in pressure, but at least you know in that role what is required in those things. I like that idea of expanding upon that to where people know lateral and side moves and things. Reminds me a lot of, and this is a weird reference, but I was in Boy Scouts growing up, and merit badges work a lot of the same way, where sometimes you'll have your manual that says how to get the badge, and you can get through a lot of those things and then just slowly knock out the ones that are a little bit more logistically challenging or so on and so forth. But that makes sense because it does. I hate to use the words carrot on a stick, but that's, to me, I view it as like, hey, at least I have something to work towards.
Yeah, we have transparency, and it's not something I have to redo at some rushed moment.
Right.
We've already written it, and we update it, because it's not perfect the first time you roll this out.
Right.
And you just constantly refine it. So after a couple years, it looks pretty good.
See, I'm glad you said that. That's always been a thing I have to reinforce is because some of these trainers are in a position where they try and make the perfect training.
Right.
It's like you're going to fail sometimes. And this might not be a good training method for this, but you're going to learn from your students why.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to do it.
That's right. Just do it.
Yeah.
You'll get better every time you touch it.
It's like rewriting that manual, whatever it is. It's like, just do it, and then
Yeah.
you can iterate upon it.
That's right. Iteration improvement.
Now, obviously, we're at the conference. IndieSoft is a sponsor. And we did talk with Mitch earlier about some of the things that you guys have going on. I really love the crew over there at IndieSoft, though.
Thank you.
You guys really, it seems like it's one of those companies that has the right intent.
Yeah. I really feel
behind-
blessed to be part. Certainly, I used that software at Medtronic for 20 years.
Wow.
So I have a
nice.
long history with IndieSoft and the leadership. And so when I decided to take early retirement, I didn't want to completely retire.
Sure.
I want to stay engaged with industry. And first person I reached out to was Rhett at IndieSoft and said, "Hey, Rhett,
Got anything for me?"
Yeah, I think I can add value in these areas." And then 30 minutes later, we solved the problem.
That's
And
amazing.
3 years later, I'm still with them, hoping to still add value from the life sciences perspective and validations and writing templates that help customers so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's kind of the things I'm able to add value to.
For sure. The experience alone, I think. And for those of you watching, I highly recommend you go back to the episode that because I was listening to it, and we were talking a lot about those things biomedical.
Right.
And a lot of listeners, they're forced in, that's a part of third-party Cal these
Yeah.
days. A huge part is biomedical.
That's
so
right,
definitely.
and the regulations.
Yeah, pharmacopoeia and what the FDA and
Yeah, the CFRs, as they
oh,
call
yeah,
them.
the CFRs. Oh, I'm so glad I don't have to deal with those. Because I have a lot of good friends.
Yeah.
You know how it is when you're an on-site technician. Sometimes you become friends with your clients.
Yeah.
Like friends. You hang out and they're just sitting there watching you, and they tell me some of that stuff. They
One
have
of
to
the
deal with.
funny things, or complicated things, whatever way, is that it's not GMP, good maintenance practice. It's CGMP. GMP, all capital letters, and C in lowercase. And everyone always asks, what's the C represent? And the C represents, from the FDA's perspective, current
Oh,
good manufacturing practice. And that's the FDA's way of getting by with not having updated the regulations in decades, by getting you to gotcha to say, but you got to stay current with the industry best practices that are currently out there. It's like, really?
wow.
It's sneaky.
Yeah, that's quite the wide net to cast.
Yes, that's sneaky.
Well, once again, I'm so thankful that you were able to come on. And again, we're only doing quick little 20-minute,
Sure.
but I always love talking with you. Can people still continue to reach out?
Absolutely.
And is LinkedIn the best place for that?
LinkedIn's a good place to be. Yeah,
Are you going to be out at NCSLI?
I will be.
Awesome. So hopefully we'll see you there. I'm still unknown because I possibly have a client that I have
Okay.
to deal with. But
All right.
I'm hoping I'll also be out there.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much. You do such a wonderful job for the industry with your training in this podcast.
I appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
Was there anything else you wanted to promote before I let you go?
No, I just got to work on my golf game more.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. All right, Walter, thank you once again for coming on.
All
Really
right. Thanks,
appreciate it.
Ryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We've had quite a few, just alone in this stream, coming on and off. So I really appreciate you all tuning in to day 2 of the MSC. And it has been a fantastic show so far. If you can tune in tomorrow, we are going to be live again. And thank you for watching.